Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Victorian-era England. The first sound is not a trumpet, or a carriage, or history making a dramatic entrance in a velvet cloak. It is the small scrape of a coal shovel in the bedroom grate, followed by the soft pull of heavy curtains. A maid crosses the room with the careful steps of someone who knows exactly how quiet morning is expected to be. Tonight, you are spending one long day as a Victorian lady, from the first pale light at the window to the final hairpin removed near midnight, a life described as leisure sounds restful from a distance. Once you are inside it, however, the day becomes crowded with duties that must never appear difficult. Before breakfast, another person must help shape you into the correct public outline. Downstairs, a letter is waiting for an answer you would rather not give. Later, a visitor may arrive whose company must be enjoyed whether enjoyment has appeared or not. Even lunch can become a private disagreement between appetite and a tightly fitted bodice. On the surface, the whole arrangement looks graceful. A silver-backed brush catches the firelight beside the mirror, and a clean pair of gloves waits for whatever the morning demands. The drawing room downstairs is polished and ready. So are you, or at least you soon will be. Beneath that calm surface lies a strict world, shaped by class, family duty, and reputation. You may not be hauling coal or scrubbing the front step, but your work lies in making effort disappear. The household must seem peaceful even when the kitchen is struggling. Bad news must be received without disturbing your posture. Servants require direction, but too much familiarity may be judged improper. Children should feel loved, though preferably without leaving jam on your sleeve. By dinner, you may be expected to charm a gentleman who has been explaining drainage since the soup, and you must do so without allowing your expression to request rescue. Of course, this life did not look the same for every woman. A wealthy wife with a large household moved through a different world from a widow quietly watching every expense. Still, many women expected to behave as ladies lived beneath the same demand. The home must look settled, the family must appear respectable, and anything difficult should be handled before it becomes visible. A genuine thank you, as always, to everyone who suggests these strange journeys into the polite corners of history, where nobody is charging into battle, but everyone is somehow exhausted by stationery. If you enjoy these calm trips through old rules, uncomfortable furniture, and social customs that make modern small talk seem merciful, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to. No pressure. It simply helps the channel more than you might imagine. Leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is there. Somewhere, someone is awake at 2 a.m. learning about Victorian gloves instead of sleeping, and that feels like one of the kinder uses of the internet. The channel is also on Spotify, so if you prefer to drift off through headphones while a calm voice explains why a calling card could disturb an afternoon, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights. Put a fan on if you have one. Pull the blanket closer and turn the pillow to the cool side. Settle into the deep modern luxury of knowing that nobody expects you to receive visitors in a corset after breakfast. How much of this elegant day will truly belong to you? And how tired can you become while everyone insists that you have spent the afternoon at leisure? Let the room around you grow still. When you open your eyes again, it is late Victorian England. The fire is being coaxed awake, your maid is waiting beside the wardrobe, and downstairs the household is already moving without you. Your first task is to become presentable before you have had a fair chance to become conscious. The day has begun. Try not to disappoint the wallpaper. Morning enters through thick curtains and the faint smell of coal smoke. A maid draws the fabric back with the quiet care of someone paid to make your comfort look natural. You wake in a bedroom that is warmer than the corridor, though still colder than you would choose, and the first pale light reaches the carpet before it reaches you. The grate needs attention. The washstand waits nearby. A bell pull hangs beside the bed with the curious power to summon another person into your unfinished morning. You are not poor, not powerless in every way, and certainly not free from duty. Even lying in bed has joined the household schedule. Your maid has probably been awake much longer than you have. In a large house, this first visit may belong to a carefully ordered chain of morning work. Housemaids clean grates before rooms are occupied, then carry coal upward in scuttles that leave dark marks on cuffs and fingers. A lady's maid may not perform every rough task herself, but she arrives after others have prepared the room. The polished calm at your bedside therefore rests on labour you rarely see. Even the clean hearth is a small victory over soot, which has spent the night settling wherever it pleases. Before she reached your door, she dressed in the dim servants' quarters and crossed a cold passage with coal in her hands. Now she kneels near the grate and works without fuss. The poker touches iron. Ash shifts. A dull red glow begins to show beneath it. Soon the room carries the dry warmth of a coal fire, and the faint smell of dust stirred from the hearth. This is comfort, but it has arrived through another woman's labour. You remain beneath the blankets for a final moment. The bed may be handsome with carved wood and heavy hangings, yet it is not fully private. Someone has entered to light the fire. Later, someone will empty the basin and clear the grate. By evening, someone will turn down the bed. The state of the pillow may tell your maid whether you slept badly, and the clothes left across a chair may tell her how late the household returned. Wealth protects you from the street while allowing the household to know a great deal about your bedroom. There is no central heating smoothing every room into the same mild temperature. Warmth gathers near the grate and fades toward the door. The bedroom becomes a small island of comfort, while the corridor outside remains a reminder that architecture has not yet agreed to be kind. The curtains open farther. Pale light settles across the dressing table and catches the edge of the mirror. A watch beside the bed tells you that the day has already moved on. Downstairs, the cook is working around the hour when you are expected at breakfast. The housekeeper may be waiting with a question. Letters could already be resting beside your plate. The house does not simply wake when you do. It prepares for you in advance, then quietly hopes you remain on time. Your maid may mention the weather. If rain taps against the glass, plans may shift toward indoor calls or letter writing. If the morning is clear, the garden or carriage could claim part of the day. She does not need to explain every consequence. A skilled maid can place the facts into a few soft words and leave you with the impression that even the weather has received instructions. The relationship between a lady and her maid can be close in one moment and sharply formal in the next. She may know which letters trouble you, which gown pulls at the shoulder, and how long you need before conversation becomes safe. She handles clothing that touches your skin and hears remarks that would never reach the drawing room. Yet she remains an employee. Her wages matter. Her reference matters even more. Affection may exist, but rank never leaves the room. You sit up while she reaches for a dressing gown. Cold air finds the space between blanket and nightdress with impressive speed. The nightdress itself is loose and high at the neck. Warmth matters more than charm at this hour, especially when the fire has only just remembered its purpose. Slippers wait on the carpet. You place one foot down and discover that the carpet is warmer than bare boards, though not by enough to inspire gratitude. Elsewhere in Britain, women are beginning the day very differently. A factory worker may already be travelling to work. A farm woman may have lit her own fire. In another house, a servant may be shaking out a rug while the family above her remains asleep. Your own morning is easier because someone else has begun it for you. That does not mean the day belongs entirely to you. Once you rise, washing follows. Dressing will take time. By the time you reach the breakfast room, the household may have been awake for several hours. For now, the maid waits without appearing to wait. The fire settles into a steady glow. You move toward the edge of the bed, and the room quietly accepts that its lady is now awake. This is excellent news for the schedule. It is less clear what it means for you. A jug of hot water arrives beside the basin, and for a moment the whole arrangement looks simple. It is easy to forget that someone heated the water below stairs, carried it upward, and crossed the landing without spilling comfort onto the carpet. You pour a little into the basin and test it with your fingers. Steam lifts briefly into the cool air. The water is warm enough to wake you, though not generous enough to suggest luxury without limits. Morning cleanliness begins with what can be reached easily. Your face receives attention first, your hands follow. A cloth passes over the neck and arms while the fire works slowly behind you. This is not proof that Victorians avoided washing. It is proof that water becomes precious when every drop has travelled by human effort. The basin may be porcelain, perhaps decorated with flowers that have never faced the burden of actual washing. The jug stands beside it, heavy at first and quickly lighter. Scented soap may wait in a small dish. A towel, warmed near the grate, offers a brief reward for leaving the bed. The mirror remains nearby, prepared to report that sleep has not improved your complexion as much as the advertisements promised. In a comfortable house, you may own a portable bath or a smaller hip bath. When one is ordered, It can be brought into the bedroom or dressing room and filled a jug at a time. Each journey begins near the kitchen range. A servant carries the water through passages and up the stairs, then returns for more. The same water must later leave the room, now heavier in spirit and no longer steaming politely. A bath therefore requires planning. It takes fuel to heat the water and strength to move it. It also takes time, which means the household must arrange itself around your wish to become thoroughly clean. Plumbing improves during the Victorian period, especially in newer urban homes and among families able to afford alterations. By the later years of the century, some wealthy houses have fixed bathrooms and piped hot water. Progress, however, arrives unevenly. A fine drawing room does not guarantee a convenient bath. Older houses resist new pipes. Landlords resist spending money. Winter freezes whatever both of them have finally agreed upon. Even where a bathroom exists, using it can still depend on the boiler, the servants, and whether anyone has remembered that hot water is not produced by optimism. Soap is widely available, from plain household varieties to expensive scented cakes sold in elegant wrappers. A lady may use a milder soap for the face and hands, though even fashionable products can leave the skin feeling less improved than disciplined. Cold cream or rosewater may soften the effect. Some preparations are useful, others succeed mainly in placing a pleasant bottle beside the mirror. Hair creates a separate problem, because it is long, slow to dry, and expected to look controlled afterward. A full wash may therefore be planned for a suitable day rather than attempted casually before breakfast. The maid can brush away dust, smooth the surface, and prepare it for dressing without soaking the whole arrangement. Cleanliness is real, but it is shaped by weather, labour, and the practical fear of spending half the morning with damp hair in a cool house. Tooth cleaning belongs to the same routine. You may use tooth powder with a small brush, chalk is common, and charcoal may appear. Some recipes include powdered cuttlefish bone, which is the sort of detail that makes modern toothpaste seem almost tender. The aim is clean teeth and fresher breath, though abrasive powders can wear enamel over time. Dentistry is improving, but it remains expensive and capable of making a person suddenly grateful for every tooth that has chosen to stay quiet. You rinse carefully into the basin. The water clouds. Your maid replaces the towel near your hand and looks away with the trained discretion of someone present for a private act without being permitted to make it feel observed. Personal service makes washing easier, yet it also removes some privacy. A lady's maid may notice a rash, a bruise, or the first grey hair before anyone else does. She may know when you have slept badly and when tears have reached the pillow. Her silence is part of her skill. Ideas about health and cleanliness change across the century. Earlier fears that full bathing might weaken the body gradually lose ground as doctors and reformers place more value on washing, ventilation, and sanitation. Public concern grows as crowded towns confront dirty water and disease, yet daily habits still depend on money, housing, season, and custom. A wealthy woman may wash in warm privacy while servants carry the burden. A working woman may clean herself quickly at a kitchen basin before beginning paid labour. Both understand cleanliness. One has simply transferred the heaviest part of it downstairs. You finish by drying your hands and studying the face in the mirror. The water has woken you more effectively than any speech about duty. Behind you, the jug is lighter. The basin is full. Soon the maid will carry away what remains, and the room will look untouched again. You have spent several minutes becoming fresh enough to begin dressing. The water has spent the morning climbing stairs for the privilege of meeting your elbows. Before the dress appears, the morning begins with a soft linen layer against the skin. Everything else will be built over it. Your body is not simply dressed, it is arranged. The maid works in the faint chill of early light, fastening one piece before reaching for the next. Respectability takes shape slowly, from the inside outward, and no part of the process has been designed for sudden freedom. The chemise is loose, washable, and far kinder than the firmer garments that follow. It protects the outer clothes from sweat and keeps the corset from pressing directly against the skin. Linen absorbs the ordinary evidence of being human, then disappears beneath clothing meant to suggest that a lady produces very little of that evidence. Drawers may come next, although their use changes across the century and is not universal in every household. They are often divided at the centre. This sounds surprising, until you consider how difficult a completely closed garment would be beneath a wide skirt and several layers. Modesty has been preserved. Convenience has been negotiated. The maid holds a stocking open while you point the foot and guide it upward. The maid may keep a needle close because small failures are easier to repair before the bodice covers them. A loosened tie or weak seam is not dramatic, but it can grow steadily more important once you are downstairs and surrounded by people. Stockings may be made from cotton, wool, or silk, depending on the season and what the household can afford. They reach above the knee and remain in place with garters. Elastic becomes more common as the century moves on, but ties and shaped bands continue to be used. The garter must hold without cutting too deeply. A stocking that slips during a morning call is embarrassing. A garter that stops the circulation before luncheon is merely unfashionable in a different direction. You sit while the maid smooths the fabric over the calf. Dressing is intimate labour. Her hands move close to your body, yet the routine is so familiar that both of you may discuss the weather while she adjusts clothing no visitor is ever meant to see. The social distance remains firm even when the physical distance has almost disappeared. Over the chemise comes the corset, which forms the centre of the fashionable outline. The upper body has no modern brassiere waiting to simplify matters. Support comes mainly from the corset and the cut of the clothing above it. The chemise may be plain, but it is valuable because it can be washed more often than the dress. Laundry is hard work, and fine fabric does not welcome rough treatment. This is why the layer nearest the skin matters so much. It protects the expensive garment while quietly carrying away the day's heat, dust, and perspiration. A corset cover may soften its ridges beneath the bodice. After that, the skirt begins to acquire its shape. Earlier in the century, several petticoats can provide fullness. When the cage crinoline becomes fashionable in the middle decades, steel hoops carry the skirt outward and reduce the need for so much heavy fabric underneath. This feels like progress until you turn toward a doorway and discover that the doorway has remained stubbornly narrow. Later fashions move the fullness toward the back. Bustles and shaped pads create a new outline, because fashion has decided that the natural body is a useful first draft, but should not control the final version. Each support changes the way you move. A wide crinoline requires care near furniture and open flames. A bustle changes how you sit. Long skirts demand attention on stairs. You learn these movements until they no longer look learned. That is part of the work. The effort must disappear before anyone sees it. The layers also answer to the weather. In winter, the warmth is welcome, though the weight becomes tiring. Summer offers less mercy. The room may grow warm before the household has finished breakfast, but the expected outline does not take a holiday simply because the air has become unreasonable. The fire burns nearby while the maid checks the hem. One fold refuses to lie properly. She corrects it with the concentration of someone preventing a small fault from travelling downstairs. Not every Victorian woman dresses with this amount of help. Many women dress themselves or assist one another. Working women need clothing that allows movement and survives hard use. Even among ladies, the number of layers depends on money, fashion, and the demands of the day. A grand morning dress requires servants not only to fasten it, but to preserve it. Someone washes the linen. Someone brushes mud from the skirt. Torn seams must be mended before they spread. The finished figure may enter the drawing room as if elegance happened naturally. Upstairs, the maid has already spent half an hour proving otherwise. At last, the understructure is in place. You look almost ready, though the dress itself has not yet appeared. Fabric settles softly against fabric. Your shape now belongs partly to you and partly to the woman kneeling near the hem with a pin between her lips. She rises, steps back, and studies the result. The morning has built a respectable foundation. Most of it will remain invisible. That is how you know it has succeeded. You stand near the dressing table while the corset is fitted and tightened enough to create the proper line without, ideally, turning breakfast into a medical incident. Victorian corsetry changes across the century, and not every woman is laced to extremes. The garment still shapes more than the waist. It affects posture, appetite, and the way you lower yourself into a chair. The maid pulls, pauses, and checks the fit with professional calm. You are not yet dressed, but you are already being edited for public use. A corset is built to support the bust and shape the torso beneath the dress. Some women fasten the front busk themselves and tighten the laces as far as their hands can reach. A lady with a maid has the advantage of even pressure and a second pair of eyes. Working women may also wear corsets, though practical needs matter more than drawing room elegance. The garment can support the back during labour, but an ill-fitting one makes every movement harder. Corsetry is therefore not simply a rich woman's oddity. It belongs to a much wider world of clothing, work, and expected female shape. It may be strengthened with whalebone, steel, or firm cording. At the front, a busk keeps the body upright. At the back, laces allow the fit to change from one wearer to another. The garment is not meant to float loosely around you like a philosophical suggestion. It must sit close, and a well-made corset is shaped for the person wearing it. Poor fit causes trouble long before tight lacing enters the conversation. Your maid checks the chemise beneath it so no wrinkle presses into the skin. Then she draws the laces in stages rather than hauling once with theatrical violence. The pressure gathers around the torso. You place one hand on the dressing table and wait while the shape settles. There is no need to faint. Fainting is inconvenient, and breakfast is cooling. Modern images often show Victorian women being pulled into impossible waists every morning while furniture trembles nearby. Extreme tight lacing certainly exists, and fashionable illustrations praise very small waists. Doctors, reformers, and satirists complain about it often, yet many women wear corsets at more moderate tension. Surviving garments and photographs show a wide range of bodies, just as the living population did. A corset can feel restrictive without turning every wearer into an emergency. It can also provide support during long hours of standing, especially when the dress itself carries weight. Comfort depends on fit and habit. It also depends on what the day expects you to do. You breathe higher in the chest because the lower ribs and waist have less freedom. The effect can look graceful. It can also make a large meal feel like an unnecessary personal challenge. Advice books may warn against overeating, though the corset has already begun enforcing that advice with greater authority than the author. Sitting requires practice. You do not collapse into a chair. You lower yourself carefully, keeping the torso upright while the skirts find their place. Bending from the waist is limited, so you bend at the knees or ask someone else to retrieve what has fallen. This is one reason servants remain useful. Wealth has arranged matters so that gravity becomes another person's employment. The corset changes as fashion changes. Earlier Victorian styles may create a smoother line through the torso. Later forms respond to the bustle and the shifting shape of the dress. By the closing years of the century, some corsets extend lower over the hips. Manufacturers offer models for riding, pregnancy, or ordinary wear. Advertisements promise comfort and health with great confidence. The word natural appears often, which is brave for a garment built with steel. Concerns about corsetry are real. Medical writers blame tight garments for faintness and indigestion. Some also warn of breathing trouble or harm to internal organs. Certain claims are overstated, but severe compression and poor fit can cause genuine harm. Dress reformers argue for looser clothing and greater freedom of movement. Their alternatives can be sensible. Sensible clothing, however, has the social difficulty of looking sensible before society is ready to admire it. A woman who rejects the expected outline may attract attention more quickly than one who suffers quietly inside it. You may therefore complain in private and fasten the bodice in public. The corset is only one part of the system. The dress is cut to fit over it. Removing the corset without changing the clothes would not produce freedom so much as a badly supported argument. Your wardrobe, your posture, and the eye of everyone around you have already agreed on the outline. Individual choice exists, but it must negotiate with what you own and where you intend to appear. The maid finishes the lacing and ties it securely. She runs her hands over the waist to check for uneven pressure, then steps back. You turn slightly toward the mirror. The reflection is firmer now. Your shoulders appear set. The waist is neat. The body is ready for the dress that will explain your class and occasion to anyone who looks. You take a cautious breath. It arrives, though not with the freedom it enjoyed earlier. The maid reaches for the next layer. The corset has done its work. It has not made you a different person. It has simply made standing like yourself socially unacceptable. Your hair is brushed until the last signs of sleep begin to disappear. The maid parts it carefully, then starts building the shape expected for the day. A curl is formed near the face. The rest is drawn back and fixed with pins. Fashion changes across the Victorian century, but one rule remains steady. A respectable head should not look improvised. By the time the style is finished, your scalp has become part of the household routine. You sit before the mirror while the brush passes from crown to ends with a firm, even pull. Loose strands catch the light, then settle against the back of your nightdress. Brushing removes dust and spreads the hair's natural oils. It also reveals every knot created during the night, each one waiting to test the maid's patience and your ability to remain gracious before tea. Hair is not necessarily washed every morning or even every week. A full wash takes time to dry, especially when the hair is long and the house is cool. Instead, it may be brushed thoroughly and smoothed with a little oil or pomade. When washing does happen, soap or a borax solution may be used. Some recipes involve egg. Others reach so confidently into the kitchen that breakfast begins to feel unsafe. Your maid creates a centre part, sharp and even. The style depends on the decade. In the early Victorian years, hair may lie smooth over the ears before gathering into a low knot. By the middle of the century, larger shapes appear at the back, helped by the growing fashion for chignons. Later the hair rises again, sometimes with a fringe across the forehead or a fuller crown beneath a hat. Fashion rarely removes an old difficulty. It simply moves it to another part of the head. Not all the volume may be yours. False pieces are widely sold, made from human hair and matched as closely as possible to the wearer. You might also save hair collected from the brush in a small covered receiver on the dressing table. Once enough is gathered, it can be shaped into a pad and hidden beneath the style for support. This is both practical and faintly unsettling to a modern ear. To you, it is simply your own hair returning to work after a brief retirement. The maid places the pad, draws a section over it, and secures the shape. Each pin must hold without showing. Too loose, and the arrangement may fail during a visit. Too tight, and the afternoon begins with a headache near the left temple. She adjusts one pin and asks whether it feels comfortable. You say yes because several more remain, and morale must be protected. Curling requires heat and judgment. Metal tongs may be warmed near the fire or over a lamp, then tested before they touch the hair. An overheated iron can scorch a curl and fill the room with the unmistakable smell of fashion becoming permanent. A skilled maid knows when the metal is ready. She winds a small section, waits, and releases it into a neat curve near the forehead. The process remains calm because panic would only make the iron more interesting. Hairnets can help hold a chignon in place. Fine nets may be nearly invisible, while decorative versions carry beads or ribbon. A little pomade smooths the surface. The finished style must appear controlled, even when the structure beneath it resembles careful engineering performed with hair. Your hairstyle must also survive whatever covers it. A bonnet in the earlier decades frames the face and protects the arrangement outdoors. Later hats may sit higher and require their own pins. Wind is a social threat because it has no respect for preparation. A sudden gust can shift a hat or loosen a veil, revealing that effortless elegance has been held together by metal and determination. Grey strands can be hidden, softened, or treated with commercial dyes, though some preparations contain harsh ingredients and deserve more suspicion than the bottle receives. Hair tonics promise strength and shine. The maid may use only a small amount, because too much leaves the style heavy and attracts dust. Good grooming is meant to look clean, never newly varnished. Hair carries moral meaning as well as fashion. Loose hair belongs largely to girls. For an adult woman, it is more likely to appear in the privacy of the bedroom or during illness. A lady presents it dressed and controlled. The orderly style suggests modesty and self-command, though another woman may have spent half an hour creating it. Class is present in that half hour. A working woman may arrange her own hair quickly before beginning the day. You can remain seated while a maid gives time and skill to yours. The difference appears in the polish of the result, but it begins with who has time to stand behind the chair. At last, the maid lifts her hands away. The shape remains. You turn your head slightly and inspect the reflection without disturbing the pins. One curl rests close to the cheek. The chignon is firm. Nothing looks accidental. You seem composed enough to meet the household, which is useful because the household has already been awake for quite some time. Your hair is finished. Your head, however, will continue carrying the evidence until midnight. You enter the breakfast room dressed well enough for family and any close guest who might already be seated. The air carries toast, tea, and a trace of coal smoke from the grate. Breakfast is quieter than dinner, but it is not free from manners. Someone asks whether you slept well, and the safest answer is usually the pleasant one. You reach for the teapot because even boiled leaves have acquired social responsibilities. The room is smaller and less formal than the dining room, though it has still been prepared with care. Morning light rests across the cloth. A small fire softens the chill. The silver pot is warm beneath your hand, while the cups wait in a neat row as if they have been awake longer than you. In a prosperous household, breakfast may not begin at one exact minute. A gentleman who rises early can eat before someone whose hair requires more negotiation. Covered dishes may wait on the sideboard so each person can choose without the ceremony expected at dinner. This looks relaxed from across the room. It is still being managed by several people. You do not wander in wearing slippers and announce that conversation may begin after the second cup. The servants have laid the table. Your presence confirms that the day is moving as it should. Pouring tea places you quietly at the centre. You judge the strength, add milk when it is wanted, and pass each cup without making the saucer tremble. The task gives you a reason to notice who seems tired and who has already opened a letter. You can also see which member of the family has decided that silence is a personal right until coffee arrives. Coffee may stand nearby in another pot. Chocolate appears in some homes, though not as an everyday rule. The meal depends on habit and money. Eggs may arrive under a silver cover. Fish can steam gently on the sideboard. Porridge offers a less ambitious beginning. Toast sits in its rack and cools with the confidence of bread that knows nobody will blame it. The grand Victorian breakfasts shown in hotels and novels are real, but few people consume every dish each morning. Abundance is partly about choice. The table proves that the household could feed you more, even when you only take an egg and half a slice of toast. Your husband or father may stand at the sideboard carving from yesterday's joint. This is sensible rather than disappointing. A well-run home wastes little, although economy must not look worried in front of guests. Cold meat becomes respectable when placed on the correct dish. Nobody needs to call it leftovers. The newspaper opens with a soft crackle. Its pages bring parliamentary debate, foreign reports, advertisements, and notices of people you know just well enough to judge. A gentleman may disappear behind it while remaining technically present. You may read another section later, or glance at a letter while keeping the room moving. Politics are not forbidden to you, but your opinion may be treated as an ornament unless you give it carefully. A lady should know enough to converse. She is not always encouraged to know enough to alter the conversation. Children may eat in the nursery if the household is large. Older children can join the family, bringing polished collars and private resistance to whatever waits in the egg cup. Their behaviour is watched because breakfast provides practice before the wider world arrives. A spoon dropped on the carpet becomes a lesson. A complaint about porridge becomes a question of character. Childhood is full of moral danger when adults have recently purchased a carpet. Servants move in and out with fresh toast or another pot of hot water. Their presence is meant to be useful and nearly silent. If the conversation turns personal, voices soften. Privacy in a staffed house is always partly theatrical. The footman does not appear to hear. The maid does not appear to notice. Everyone has developed professional respect for remarks that may be repeated below stairs only after a suitable pause. Breakfast also sends instructions through the house. You mention when the carriage will be needed. A note must go to the post. A caller may be expected before noon. A servant carries the message away, and the quiet room begins moving corridors you cannot see. Your husband leaves for business or estate matters. A son may set out for school, the front door closes, and the table begins to clear. You take one final sip before the cup is removed. The meal has looked informal, almost private. Yet the servants watched the clock, the family watched one another, and the toast went cold beneath conditions of perfect respectability. Your own appetite must also fit the hour. A large plate may be perfectly acceptable at home, but a lady is still expected to eat neatly and without seeming fiercely interested in the bacon. The corset offers practical help by ending enthusiasm early. If you have slept badly, tea restores some colour before anyone asks whether you are unwell. If you are truly unwell, breakfast may come upstairs on a tray, which turns illness into another arrangement for the servants. This morning, however, you remain at the table. The household sees you upright, composed, and ready. That is close enough to health for social purposes. The morning post waits beside your plate with the soft threat of handwriting. One envelope carries an invitation, another looks heavier, and may contain a bill. A third has been addressed by someone who presses too firmly with the pen. You move the pile to the writing table, knowing that every reply must sound natural while being considered with great care. The real instrument is not the steel nib, it is judgment. In a large town, letters may arrive more than once during the day. By the later Victorian period, London households can receive several deliveries between morning and evening, which gives social anxiety an impressively efficient service. Rural districts move more slowly, but the National Post has still changed ordinary life. Uniform penny postage, introduced in 1840, makes letters cheaper to send. The small adhesive stamp allows private thought to travel quickly, provided the writer first survives the opening sentence. You choose the easiest envelope before touching the one that matters. A cousin asks whether you are free on Thursday. The answer depends on who else will attend and how recently you have visited. Accept too quickly, and your calendar may appear empty. Wait too long, and you risk seeming cold. Social correspondence has its own pace, and you are expected to feel it without looking at a clock. An invitation deserves a prompt reply. A note of condolence requires warmth without turning another family's grief into a performance of your own. A request for charity needs attention, though the amount offered may depend on the household accounts. The pen must move through all of this without leaving behind a sentence that can be repeated in the wrong drawing room. Stationery speaks before the words begin. Good paper has weight beneath your fingers. A monogram may appear at the top, especially later in the century, but decoration should not ask for too much admiration. Mourning paper carries a black border whose width changes as grief moves through its expected stages. Even sorrow has margins. The envelope should match. Your handwriting should remain clear enough to show that feeling has not disturbed the wrist. You dip the nib into the ink and begin. Steel pens have become common, replacing much of the daily work once done by quills. They are useful, though they can scratch the paper or leave a blot on the exact word meant to look effortless. Blotting paper waits nearby. You press it carefully over the line, then lift it again. The sentence survives, though the page now carries a small shadow of the struggle. Etiquette books offer forms of address for different relationships. A close friend receives warmth. A distant acquaintance receives correctness. A person of higher rank receives the respect due to rank, even when the actual person has been tiresome since childhood. First names can show intimacy. Titles preserve distance. The closing phrase matters too. What looks like a harmless choice between one form and another can reveal how near you believe the relationship to be. Small decisions are where polite society stores most of its danger. Privacy is never complete. Servants carry the letters between the front door and the breakfast room. A lady's maid may notice which envelope makes you pause. In some marriages, a husband opens household correspondence as a matter of habit. Personal letters can be locked inside a desk or tied in bundles. Others are burned. Many are kept, which is why future historians will discover that Victorians spent a remarkable amount of time apologising for not having written sooner. You turn at last to the difficult note. Perhaps a relative intends to stay for several weeks. Perhaps an acquaintance has offered advice in the shape of concern. The first honest sentence that enters your mind cannot be trusted with paper. Your answer must close a door without making any sound. You write that the household is unfortunately engaged, that the timing remains uncertain, or that another opportunity may soon present itself. Each phrase is soft enough to touch and firm enough to prevent luggage arriving on Tuesday. A more personal letter takes longer. A sister may have written about money or an unhappy marriage. A friend may confess something she cannot say during a call. Here the rules loosen, though they do not disappear. You can be tender, but the page may survive you. Letters are lost, saved, copied, or found by the wrong person. Even affection benefits from a little caution when it is travelling through the post. Once the ink dries, you fold the page and slip it into the envelope. Sealing wax may still be used for formal or private correspondence, though gummed envelopes become increasingly common. A seal pressed into warm wax can carry initials or a family crest. It also offers one final chance to drip something hot onto the desk. You finish the last reply and ring for a servant. The letters leave your hand and begin their journey toward other tables. By afternoon, one may bring pleasure, another may cause offence. The most careful sentence may be heard in exactly the tone you tried to avoid. The post is wonderfully efficient. It can deliver misunderstanding before luncheon. You sit for a moment after the servant leaves. The desk looks calm again, but several households now contain your words. That is the danger of finishing a letter. It stops belonging entirely to you. You may never polish the banister yourself, yet its condition still reaches your morning. After breakfast, the housekeeper arrives with an account book and a question about the linen press. She knows what has worn thin, what has gone missing, and which servant has used more sugar than the pantry can politely explain. This is the hidden work of a Victorian lady with means. You supervise without looking hurried. The house appears calm because many people are working beneath that calm, and you are expected to keep the machinery out of sight. In a large home, the housekeeper may carry a basket of keys at her waist. Each one belongs to a cupboard, a storeroom, or a linen press. The keys show that she is trusted with valuable supplies. Tea and sugar remain costly enough to watch carefully. Wine must be recorded. Fine cloth cannot simply wander away. She knows which shelf is running low and which bottle has emptied more quickly than expected. You know the household must remain generous without becoming wasteful. Somewhere between those duties lies a long conversation over figures. You meet in a morning room or another space away from visitors. The housekeeper opens the book and begins with what cannot wait. A sheet is torn beyond another repair. One of the upstairs bells no longer rings below. A housemaid has asked for leave to visit her mother. Each matter sounds small when spoken alone. Together, they explain how a large house can consume money while sitting perfectly still. The linen cupboard receives close attention. Sheets and tablecloths are expensive, and they endure hard use. The household marks them with initials or numbers, then counts them after washing. A missing pillowcase is not merely a piece of cloth enjoying independence. It may suggest carelessness or theft. More likely, it has returned from the laundry under the wrong name. The housekeeper tracks it anyway. Domestic order is built from things being where they were last counted. You may inspect a damaged sheet, or run a finger over a weak seam. The choice is whether to repair it again, move it to a less important bedroom, or replace it. Replacement means expense, and expense must fit the income. Even a wealthy family can spend beyond its means. Respectability has an appetite, especially when every guest expects fresh linen and no visible concern about the price. Coal creates a similar problem. Every warm room consumes it. Delivery costs rise, storage must remain dry, and servants carry each scuttle upstairs. If the household uses too much, the bill becomes uncomfortable. If the fires remain low, guests become uncomfortable instead. You approve another order or ask that the supply last a little longer. The instruction leaves the room sounding sensible. Below stairs, someone will make it work with less coal. Servant matters require more care. The housekeeper supervises much of the female staff, while the butler may oversee the men in a grand household. She reports lateness, poor work, or friction among the servants. You may hear that a maid has chipped a basin or that the kitchen maid cries whenever the cook speaks sharply. The truth is rarely neat. A cook can be difficult and still produce excellent dinners. A maid can be clumsy because she is exhausted rather than dishonest. Your decision affects wages and whether someone keeps a roof over her head. Authority arrives quietly, but it does not arrive lightly. References matter enormously in domestic service. A poor character from a former employer can make another position hard to find. This gives you power over a servant leaving the house. A fair reference may help her move forward. A spiteful one can follow her for years. Good employers understand this. Bad employers understand it too, which is the difficulty. You decide that the maid should be corrected rather than dismissed. The housekeeper gives a small nod and writes it down. No one needs to announce that mercy has occurred. The account book comes last. Wages and household purchases appear in careful columns. Food has cost more this week. A repair cannot wait. The sum allowed for domestic spending has not grown merely because the bills have. In some marriages, the husband controls the larger finances and gives his wife a fixed household allowance. If the home runs smoothly, the work disappears. If the money falls short, the failure may become hers even when prices have risen. You may postpone replacing a curtain, or decide that the guest room can manage with the older blankets. This is not the broad public power denied to most women. It is smaller and domestic, but still real. You decide how money is used inside the home and influence the daily conditions of those who work there. At the same time, your authority may stop at the edge of the allowance. The housekeeper closes the book and gathers her keys. Within minutes, your decisions begin travelling through the corridors. A fire will be reduced, a sheet will be mended, a maid will be warned and allowed to stay. By the time visitors arrive, none of it will be visible. The house will seem naturally orderly. That is the mark of good management. It is also why so much of your morning can vanish into a cupboard without anyone noticing. You sit with the cook's report and the uncomfortable knowledge that dinner is never merely dinner. The meal must suit the season, the household purse, and the people expected to sit around the table. An ordinary family dinner can be modest. A formal one must arrive with quiet confidence, even if the kitchen below is one saucepan away from mutiny. You do not roast the joint yourself. Still, if it fails, society will not hold a serious conversation with the cow. The cook may stand near the table with a notebook or speak through the housekeeper, depending on the size of the household. She knows what the butcher can supply and whether the fishmonger has anything worth buying. You know who is expected to dine and how much can be spent without admitting that spending has limits. Between you, the evening meal begins taking shape long before anyone sits down. Season matters because a Victorian kitchen cannot summon strawberries in winter by pressing a button. Wealth can stretch the calendar through glass houses, preserved fruit, or costly imports, but most households still answer to what is available. Spring brings young vegetables. Autumn offers game and orchard fruit. Winter relies more heavily on stores and roots. A skilled cook works with these limits while making the result look chosen rather than imposed. The difference between economy and embarrassment is often a source. Guests change the calculation. A quiet family meal can make good use of yesterday's roast. A formal evening requires more thought. You remember that one gentleman dislikes fish, though he has explained the matter so often that no one could forget. An elderly aunt may need something easy to eat. A fashionable guest may expect refinement and leave most of it untouched. The table must appear generous without becoming vulgar. Too little suggests poor management. Too much can look showy. You are trying to feed people while also protecting the household from interpretation. Service changes during the century. Earlier tables may follow service à la française, with several dishes placed out together so guests can choose what lies near them. The display looks abundant, though the food cools while everyone decides who should pass what. Later, service à la Russe becomes fashionable in many grand homes. Dishes arrive one after another, already portioned or served by attendants. This keeps each course warmer and gives the meal a steady order. It also demands exact timing below stairs. One delay can leave a room full of dressed people studying the flowers while pretending not to wonder where the fish has gone. The cook must think about more than taste. The kitchen range has its own temper. Ovens heat unevenly. Sauces can split. A large joint may need hours of attention. Coal quality affects the fire, and the kitchen itself can become hot enough to make the dining room's calm feel dishonest. Servants carry dishes through passages and upstairs, hoping the gravy remains where it belongs. By the time dinner looks effortless, several people below stairs have lost any interest in eating it. You also judge whether one dish sits comfortably beside the next. A rich soup followed by heavy fish can tire the appetite too soon. Too many sweets make the table childish. Too much spice may suggest the cook is hiding something. Victorian cookery can be rich, but good management still values balance. Advice books offer model menus and warn against repeating the same ingredient too often. These books are useful until they describe a dish requiring 6 hours of labour as simple. The household accounts place firm limits on ambition. Meat is costly. Fish becomes dearer inland. Imported fruit can turn dessert into a financial event. You may approve one luxury and ask the cook to save elsewhere. A plainer luncheon tomorrow can repair tonight's elegance. Leftovers are not discarded carelessly. They return in pies, hashes, or cold dishes under names polite enough to protect everyone's feelings. The cook must transform them well. Nothing damages respectability like recognizing Thursday's mutton on Saturday. Food also carries ideas about health. A delicate guest may be offered something thought, light, or strengthening. Children often receive simpler dishes. Rich sauces are blamed for indigestion, though the person who eats far beyond comfort may escape criticism. Doctors and household advisors have strong opinions about digestion. The dining table listens to all of them and continues serving pudding. You settle the main decisions and allow the cook room to work. A good cook is valuable and difficult to replace. She usually knows both facts. She may object if the menu is too ambitious for the staff or the range. You can insist, but a wise mistress hears the warning beneath the tone. Authority becomes much easier when dinner does not burn. The cook leaves with her notes. Below stairs, ingredients are checked and work begins. Hours later, guests will praise the meal as though it appeared through good breeding. You will smile and accept the compliment. The cook will hear about it eventually, probably while standing beside a sink full of pans. Wine requires its own decision. The bottle should suit the course and the standing of the guests without looking chosen mainly for price. The butler may advise, especially if he controls the cellar. You listen because he knows which bottles are ready and which should remain untouched. A poor choice can be forgiven. Serving a celebrated bottle too early may be remembered longer than the conversation. Behind the polished rooms lies another house built for work. Bells tremble below stairs, narrow passages carry dishes toward the dining room, and the servants' hall gathers the people who keep your comfort moving. Their lives run close to yours without ever becoming part of it in the same way. You may recognize a maid's cough or know when the cook is in a temper, but the household expects distance. Kindness has limits. Authority has manners. Even asking after someone's mother can become delicate if it happens in the wrong doorway. The bell system makes the division visible. A pull beside your fireplace or bed sends a wire through the wall to a numbered bell below. It shakes when called, and a servant looks up to see which room needs attention. The sound may mean more coal, a letter carried out, or nothing more urgent than a shawl left several yards away. The system allows the family to summon help without crossing the house. It also means that a quiet moment below stairs can end because someone upstairs has remembered a cushion. In a large household, rank shapes the servant's world as firmly as it shapes yours. The butler stands near the top of the male staff. The housekeeper manages much of the female side. Your lady's maid serves you directly, while housemaids clean bedrooms and passages. Footmen answer doors and carry dishes with the grave expression of men entrusted with civilization's soup. Not every home employs so many people. A middle-class family may rely on one general servant, who rises early, works late, and is expected to possess the skills of several departments without receiving several wages. You may see the same maid at breakfast, hear her carrying coal upstairs, and ring for her before she has finished clearing the dishes. Her day begins before yours and often ends after you have gone to bed. Domestic service offers wages, food, and lodging. For many young women from working families, it is one of the most available forms of paid work. It may provide training and the chance to save a little money. It can also mean long hours, strict rules, and little privacy. A live-in servant sleeps beneath your roof but does not share your home as you do. Her bedroom may be small and cold. Her meals are taken below stairs. Visitors are restricted. Time away depends on permission and whether the household can spare her. The servant's entrance preserves the idea that two social worlds occupy one building without meeting too openly. Tradespeople arrive there. Deliveries pass through it. Servants leave and return without disturbing the front hall. The back stairs carry work upward while keeping the workers out of sight. Clean sheets appear in bedrooms. Hot dishes arrive at dinner. Ashes vanish from grates. The house seems to perform these acts by itself. Architecture has simply learned how to hide the people doing them. You may try to be considerate. A maid asks for an evening out, and you approve it if the household can manage. Another servant needs to visit a sick parent. At Christmas, you may give a small present or extra money. These gestures matter. They do not erase the difference between your positions. A servant can be grateful and still resent being called back halfway through her tea. You can be kind and still expect obedience. The relationship is personal because you live close together, but it remains economic because one person may dismiss the other. Forms of address help maintain the boundary. Servants call you ma'am or use your title. Senior staff may be addressed by surname, while younger maids are often called by first name. Uniforms make the order visible. A housemaid may wear a practical print dress during rough morning work, then change into a cleaner black one with a white apron later in the day. The neat uniform tells visitors that the home is well run. It tells the wearer exactly where she stands within it. Servants know more than polite society likes to admit. They hear arguments through doors. They carry letters whose handwriting they recognize. They wash stained clothes and clear meals left untouched. A lady's maid knows when you have been crying. The butler knows how much wine has gone missing. Nursery staff know which child wakes frightened at night. Discretion is part of the service. Though gossip moves through the servants' hall as naturally as it moves through the drawing room, information has never respected staircases. By the later Victorian period, some employers complain about a servant problem. Young women have more alternatives in shops, factories and offices, especially in towns. Domestic service remains widespread, but workers may leave households that treat them badly. Mistresses complain that good servants are difficult to find. Servants quietly reach a similar conclusion about mistresses. The complaint reveals how much comfort depends on cooperation disguised as hierarchy. You ring after breakfast because a letter must go to the post. Somewhere below, the correct bell shakes. A servant sets down what she is doing and climbs the stairs. She enters quietly, accepts the envelope, and disappears by the route guests seldom notice. A few minutes later, the front of the house looks calm again. Your comfort has moved through the building on someone else's feet. The nursery door opens, and a child enters with the solemn care of someone who has recently been warned about elbows. A younger one follows with a wooden horse held by one leg. Their hair has been smoothed, their collars sit properly, and somewhere behind them the nurse remains ready to rescue both manners and furniture. If you are a Victorian mother in a comfortable household, this may be how part of the morning reaches you. You love your children, but much of their daily care belongs to other women. The nursery has its own rhythm, and you visit it rather than live inside it. In a wealthy home, a nurse may oversee meals, sleep, washing, and the small accidents that fill the hours before a child can read. A nursemaid helps with dressing and carries the youngest through the house. They know which child wakes in the night, which one hides bread beneath the plate, and which one cannot sleep without a scrap of cloth that everyone agrees not to call important. You know the children differently. Your place is meant to be moral as well as affectionate. Advice books praise the mother as the heart of the home, a phrase that sounds gentle until you notice how much responsibility has been placed inside it. Your example should teach kindness and self-control. Your approval matters. So does your disappointment. A quiet look from you may carry more force than a long lecture from the governess, especially if the child has spent the morning preparing to show you a drawing. The page is held up. It may represent a horse, a house, or an event understood only by the artist. You admire the effort without making claims that later evidence may challenge. The child watches your face carefully. These meetings can be brief, but they are not empty. Affection is real even when the household timetable has arranged it. Younger children in affluent families often spend much of the day upstairs. Apter, the nursery keeps their noise away from formal rooms and protects visitors from sudden contact with jam. Meals may be served there. Toys gather beneath chairs despite repeated attempts to place them in boxes. The room is kept warmer than many others because children are thought delicate, and because cold fingers make handwriting even less convincing. Victorian ideas about childhood change during the century. The older expectation of early discipline remains strong, yet a growing middle-class ideal presents childhood as a special stage that deserves protection. Families buy books written for children. Toys become more varied. Christmas increasingly gathers around the nursery and the family hearth. Even so, protection comes with obedience. A well-brought-up child should be truthful, tidy and grateful, preferably without needing several reminders before breakfast. The nursery is also a place of fear. Scarlet fever, measles, diphtheria, and whooping cough can move quickly through a household. Wealth provides better rooms and more help, but it does not remove infection. A nurse who notices a warm forehead may send for you at once. The ordinary distance between mother and nursery disappears when a child is ill. You sit beside the bed, listen to the breathing, and wait for the doctor. Childhood death remains common enough to shape family memory, though it is never ordinary to the people who endure it. That knowledge rests quietly behind the care given to clean linen and warm milk. This morning, however, no one is ill. One child recites a short lesson. Another has discovered that the wooden horse fits neatly beneath a chair and sees no reason to explain why. You correct a small fault. The nurse steps forward before it grows larger. Order returns with the quiet speed of people who have done this many times. Discipline differs from one household to another. Some parents are stern, others are openly tender. Corporal punishment exists, especially for boys at school, but Victorian family life is not one endless scene of severity. Parents write loving letters to children and play with them. They worry when separated and grieve deeply when a child dies. The formal family photograph captures posture, not the whole relationship. You may kiss a forehead or allow the eldest to sit beside you for a few minutes. The child leans against your sleeve. For a moment, the room loses its careful distance. Then the nurse notices jam on 2 fingers and moves with the speed of someone protecting both affection and silk. As the children grow older, the distance changes again. Sons may move towards schoolrooms, tutors, and eventually boarding school, while daughters remain longer under female supervision. You are expected to prepare both for adult life, though not for the same adult life. A boy must learn independence. A girl must learn judgment without looking too independent. The nursery has already begun teaching the future through chairs, books, and who is allowed to leave the room first. Soon the visit ends. Lessons must continue, and you have letters waiting downstairs. The children are guided back toward their own part of the house. The drawing room grows quiet again. You remain with the picture in your hand, touched by the visit, and aware that the nurse will now manage the argument about boots. Victorian motherhood has made you the moral centre of the household. It has also arranged for someone else to wipe the porridge from it. You find the governess in the schoolroom, standing beside a desk while one child copies a sentence and another studies a map with the expression of someone personally betrayed by continence. The room is brighter than the nursery and more serious. Books line a narrow shelf. A globe waits near the window, polished enough to suggest that the world becomes manageable when reduced to a sphere. The governess turns as you enter and greets you with respect, though not with the same deference expected from a housemaid. She belongs to the household yet never quite settles into it. A governess is often a gentlewoman by birth, educated enough to teach, but without enough money to live independently. Perhaps her father died. Perhaps the family income failed. Paid work became necessary, and the respectable choices open to a middle-class woman were narrow. Governessing allows her to earn without entering domestic service in the usual sense. It also places her inside another family's home, where everyone knows that she is paid and nobody quite agrees what that makes her. At meals, the difficulty becomes visible. In some houses she eats with the family, in others she dines with the children or alone. She is too socially refined for the servants' hall, yet too dependent to be treated as a guest. A servant receives clear orders, a visitor receives courtesy. The governess receives both, often in the same afternoon. You ask about the morning's work. She reports that the eldest child has improved in French pronunciation, though the improvement may not survive contact with France. The younger one continues to resist arithmetic. She explains this calmly because a governess must carry authority without sounding harsh and patience without looking weak. If the children disobey, the household may blame her lack of control. If she disciplines them too firmly, their mother may object. She must guide children who know she cannot dismiss them, while they live in a house that can dismiss her. The curriculum depends on age and family ambition. Girls may study reading, writing, history, geography, French, music, and drawing. Accomplishments matter because they prepare a daughter for polite society. Boys often remain with a governess when young, then move to a tutor or school for a more classical education. Latin and advanced mathematics are likely to follow them elsewhere, as though knowledge itself has been divided into rooms marked by gender. A capable governess may know far more than she is expected to display. Her own education may include languages, literature, and history, yet she must present knowledge in a form that improves the children without making the adults uncomfortable. The day is long. Lessons occupy the morning. Practice and walks follow later. In the evening she may sit with the family, but she cannot relax as they do. She remains responsible for the children and aware of her place. A small private room offers some refuge. It may contain a narrow bed, a washstand, and the few books she owns. Letters from home become precious. A visit from a friend may require permission. Marriage might end the employment, but opportunities to meet suitable men are limited when most of the day is spent correcting spelling. Popular novels understand the loneliness of this position. The governess becomes a familiar Victorian figure because she stands inside the household while remaining outside its security. She sees quarrels and private weakness. She may be trusted with the children but excluded from adult confidence. She can teach a girl how to enter society while having little place in society herself. Her salary may look respectable on paper, yet much of it must be saved against an uncertain future. Clothes, travel home, and small personal expenses come from the same limited sum. There is no pension waiting simply because she has explained fractions patiently for 20 years. She may become deeply attached to the children, especially after years in the same house. That affection carries its own risk. When a son leaves for school or a daughter marries, the family moves forward while the governess remains behind. She has helped shape their lives without gaining a lasting claim upon them. The bond is real, but the household can still end it with a month's notice and a reference folded into an envelope. You may treat her kindly. You ask whether the schoolroom fire is warm enough or whether new books are needed. These questions matter because some employers are careless, and a cold room does not improve geography. Yet kindness does not remove the wage relationship. You decide whether her work is satisfactory. A strong reference may help her find another position. If she falls ill, the household may be sympathetic, but lessons still need to continue. Your child brings over a copybook. The handwriting begins well and loses courage near the bottom of the page. The governess points to the strongest line. You add a word of praise. The child brightens, and for a moment the room feels easy. Then the piano lesson is mentioned, and the ease leaves through the window. You return downstairs while the governess takes her place beside the instrument. A hesitant scale begins above you, each note separated by effort. Later, the household will praise the children's accomplishments. Few guests will think of the woman upstairs who heard the same wrong note 12 times and corrected it without once throwing herself into the shrubbery. By late morning, the drawing room has been made ready for people who may remain only 15 minutes. The fire is checked. A chair is moved slightly nearer the light. You glance at one cushion whose angle suddenly seems capable of damaging the family name. Calling is meant to look effortless, which is why the room has been preparing for it since breakfast. When the first visitor is announced, you rise with a gentle smile and enter the small, exact world of Victorian social calls. Morning calls often take place later than the name suggests. Depending on the decade and local habit, the proper hour may begin around noon and continue through the afternoon. Arrive too early and you risk finding the household unready. Arrive too late and you may interfere with dinner or suggest a degree of closeness that has not been granted. A formal call is usually brief. 10 or 15 minutes can be enough. Stay less and you may appear cold. Stay much longer and you become the afternoon's main difficulty. The visitor enters wearing her bonnet and gloves because she is calling, not settling in for the season. You decide whether the relationship asks for a handshake, a kiss, or a small bow. Rank influences who sits where and who begins speaking, though friendship can soften the rules. She takes the chair you indicate. The first subject is often the weather because it has happened to everyone and cannot repeat the conversation elsewhere. A recent concert may be praised. An illness can be mentioned with suitable concern. Family news enters carefully, especially when the family concerned is absent and therefore especially interesting. Tea may not appear during every short call, but if a tray arrives, another quiet performance begins. You pour without seeming occupied by the pouring. Your guest accepts without appearing hungry. A small cake sits between you, carrying more emotional possibility than anyone admits. Calls serve many purposes. They maintain friendships and acknowledge new arrivals in the neighbourhood. They offer condolences after a death and congratulations after a marriage or birth. A newly married woman may receive calls before she begins returning them. Families use these visits to mark who belongs within their social circle. The system creates connection, although it also turns affection into something that can be fitted between two other addresses. A person may care for you deeply and still leave after 12 minutes because another household is waiting 3 streets away. Conversation must fit the length of the visit. Serious feeling is difficult to introduce while the caller remains in outdoor gloves and the carriage waits beyond the window. You may begin to say something honest, then hear the mantel clock and return to asking after an aunt. Polite life protects people from awkwardness by protecting them from depth. Close friends can bend the rules, but formal acquaintances remain near the surface. Even silence must be handled before it begins to look deliberate. The clock becomes a silent third person in the room. Neither woman stares at it, yet both know when the proper interval is ending. A second caller may arrive before the first has left. You introduce them if necessary and adjust the conversation so no one is excluded. If the two women dislike one another, the room becomes extremely courteous. Compliments increase. Voices soften. The fire continues burning without any understanding of what it is witnessing. Servants shape the encounter as well. A footman or parlour maid announces each visitor and brings the card upstairs. You may be not at home, even while sitting in the room above. This is a recognised phrase meaning that you are not receiving callers. The servant is not expected to search the house for proof. The visitor leaves a card and accepts the message. Everyone understands the arrangement and agrees not to injure it with honesty. If you are making the calls, the carriage takes you from one polished doorway to the next. At some houses, you leave a card and move on. At another, you are admitted and repeat the careful exchange. Your expression must suggest pleasure without surprise, even if the woman you hope to avoid is already sitting beside the fire. The bonnet stays secure. The gloves remain on. Nothing about you should suggest that the third visit has begun to feel like work. Some women set aside particular afternoons for receiving, especially in larger towns where social life becomes crowded. On those days, the household knows that callers may arrive in a steady stream. You remain dressed and available while servants manage the door. The arrangement saves uncertainty, though it can also leave you smiling through the same account of the weather until the clouds themselves feel personally responsible. At last, your caller rises. This is the signal that the encounter has reached its proper end. You rise too and accompany her far enough to show respect without following her into the street. Warm words are exchanged. The servant leads her away. The front door closes, and the drawing room releases a small breath. The call has succeeded. No one stayed too long, sat in the wrong chair, or admitted anything that could not travel safely into another house. Friendship has been preserved. The tea is still warm, which may be the clearest proof that nobody became sincere. A calling card waits on the silver tray in the hall, small enough to slip into a glove and important enough to alter the afternoon. You lift it and read the name. The printing is simple. Good taste prefers confidence without decoration shouting from the corner. The visitor herself may already have gone, yet the card remains behind to announce that she came, that the household was remembered, and that a response may now be expected. Victorian society has found a way for a rectangle of paper to create an obligation without once raising its voice. Cards become an important part of social life during the 19th century, especially among the middle and upper classes. A stationer engraves a plate and prints a supply, giving you a neat stack of identity ready for use. A gentleman's card is often smaller and plainer than a lady's. A married woman's name may appear through her husband's identity according to the custom of the time, a reminder that even the card in her own hand can belong partly to someone else. The name tells the servant at the door whether the visitor is known and whether you are likely to receive her. In a growing town where respectable families cannot rely on village memory, the card offers a small proof of who has arrived. It also gives the visitor something to leave when the door remains closed. A first visit to a new neighbourhood may begin with cards delivered to nearby households. Those families decide whether to return the call. The exchange opens a connection without requiring anyone to admit that the connection is being tested. If the card comes back, acquaintance may continue. If it does not, silence has answered with excellent stationery. The rules vary by decade and place, which gives etiquette writers steady employment. Later accounts sometimes assign exact meanings to every folded corner or turned edge, though such codes are not always consistent and may have been exaggerated. Safer meaning lies in the card's timing, the name upon it, and the event that caused it to be left. A mourning border can signal bereavement. A card sent with flowers identifies the giver. A card left after a birth, marriage, or death shows that the household has been remembered. The paper does not explain emotion. It confirms that the proper notice has been taken. You sort through the morning's arrivals. One card belongs to a woman you met at dinner the previous week. Returning her call would be courteous. Another comes from an older relation whose visit cannot be ignored without consequences that may last through Christmas. A third bears the name of someone you know, mainly by reputation. The card itself is harmless. The reputation has entered the house ahead of it and is already seated comfortably. You place the first card beside your writing desk as a reminder. A suitable day must be chosen. Too quick a return may seem eager. Too slow a response may look dismissive. The system is useful because it turns uncertainty into ritual. You need not ask whether another family wishes to know you. You wait for the paper to travel back. Calling cards can also maintain distance. A formal visit may satisfy duty without encouraging intimacy. You acknowledge the household, speak for a few minutes, and leave before the acquaintance grows roots. This is especially valuable when family connections or rank require politeness towards someone whose conversation has the texture of boiled linen. Servants manage much of the traffic. A footman receives cards on a tray. A parlour maid carries them upstairs. The butler may know the names and understand which visitors are welcome. This gives the staff quiet influence at the edge of your social world. A misplaced card can delay a return call. A name pronounced badly at the drawing room door can reduce a confident arrival to a small personal defeat. The visitor pretends not to notice. Everyone else notices for her. A card case travels with you when you leave the house. It may be made of leather, silver, ivory, or another polished material suited to your means. At the door, you remove one card and hand it to the servant. If the family is receiving, you may enter. If not, the card remains behind and performs the visit in your place. This saves time and protects everyone from the shock of unplanned conversation. After a crowded reception, a hostess may use the cards to remember who attended. The pile becomes a map of future obligations. Invitations may follow, so may careful omissions. The entire system is polite, but it is not gentle. Inclusion can be shown through a returned call. Distance can be shown by doing nothing at all. Nobody needs to write that the acquaintance will not continue. The empty tray will eventually explain. The tray itself may remain visible in the hall or drawing room, a quiet display of who has called recently. Guests can notice the names without seeming to inspect them. Polite society enjoys information most when nobody admits to reading it. You place the card back among the others. Its owner may be pleasant, dull, kind, ambitious, or several of these before tea. For now, she is a name on stiff paper with excellent timing. Tomorrow, you may return the visit. If you do not, the card will remain perfectly calm. Reputation can do the worrying for it. The front door closes behind you, and the street immediately feels less forgiving than the drawing room. Damp stone darkens beneath the morning air. A carriage rolls past, leaving the sound of wheels and the practical evidence of horses. Your boots meet the pavement carefully. A lady outdoors is visible, and visibility invites interpretation. You may be walking for exercise, making a call, or crossing the garden before luncheon, but the world will still read your clothing and your company before it hears your reason. If you are married and older, you often enjoy more freedom than a young unmarried woman. Age and rank loosen rules that remain tight around daughters. Even so, the street is not anonymous. Neighbours notice where you turn. Shopkeepers recognise the household. A passing carriage may contain someone who remembers your companion more clearly than your face. The walking dress is practical by fashionable standards, which means the skirt avoids the ground a little more successfully than an evening gown. Boots protect your feet from mud. Gloves keep the hands covered. A bonnet or hat frames the face and shows that you have prepared properly for daylight. The parasol offers shade when the sun appears, though in England it may spend more time waiting than working. Weather decides much of the outing. Rain draws the smell from stone and earth. A dry wind lifts soot from the road. In summer, dust settles along the hem. Later, a maid may brush the skirt before the dirt becomes a permanent record of where you have been. You step around what a horse has left behind because modern traffic problems have not yet become modern. The city moves on hooves, and the pavement receives the full report. Walking is praised as healthy when performed in moderation. Advice writers encourage fresh air and gentle exercise, especially for women whose days are spent indoors. A turn in the garden or park is thought-strengthening, provided it does not look so vigorous that anyone suspects ambition. You should not stride as if escaping. You move steadily, keeping the body upright despite the corset and the weight of the skirt. Respectability should not arrive breathless. In a private garden, the rules soften. You may pause beside a flower bed or inspect a path after rain. Gardening becomes an acceptable interest for many women, though heavy digging is generally left to gardeners in wealthy homes. You can cut flowers or discuss planting with the head gardener. He knows the soil better. You decide which part of it should look effortless by June. Public parks offer another kind of freedom. They allow walking, watching, and being watched beneath a respectable cover of fresh air. Carriages circle the drives. Families move along the paths. You may meet acquaintances without arranging a formal call. A greeting can be exchanged and allowed to end naturally, which feels almost daring after a morning ruled by visiting cards. Yet even a simple meeting carries questions. Who should acknowledge whom first? How warmly should you respond? Looking away too quickly can seem rude. Looking too pleased can provide dinner conversation for someone else. A young unmarried woman is more likely to walk with a female relative, governess, maid, or other suitable companion. The exact strictness varies by family and decade. A brief errand in a familiar neighbourhood may not require the same supervision as a country walk with a young man. Still, being seen alone with a man can damage reputation, even when nothing improper has happened. Gossip does not need evidence when scenery is available. The companion therefore performs a social service by being present and, ideally, interested in a tree while the younger pair speak. Courtship needs privacy. Respectability prefers a witness. The compromise is a woman standing several steps away and pretending the weather deserves her full attention. Streets also reveal the divisions within Victorian life. You walk for health or pleasure while working women move because wages depend on it. A servant hurries with a parcel. A flower seller stands in the cold. Factory workers pass with the direct pace of people who cannot turn the journey into exercise. Your clean gloves do not remove you from this world, though they show which part of it you occupy. A charity visit may take you into a poorer district, where the air is heavier and the street narrower. The contrast can be uncomfortable. It can also remain distant if you return home before luncheon and describe the visit as useful. The hour matters too. A fashionable promenade is most useful when other people are present to witness it. Walking at the wrong time can make a fine dress feel wasted, while appearing regularly at the proper hour allows society to confirm that you remain healthy, respectable, and still in possession of the same bonnet. You continue along the path until a familiar carriage approaches. There is just enough time to decide whether the relationship requires a nod, a smile, or sudden interest in the shrubbery. You choose the greeting and receive one in return. Nothing important has happened. That is why it required such care. By the time you return, damp has reached the edges of your boots, and the air has brought colour to your face. The door opens before you touch it. You have taken exercise, preserved your reputation, and crossed half a mile under observation. Victorian freedom has been enjoyed responsibly. No one can accuse you of wandering. The shopping street glows behind broad panes of glass, each window arranged to make desire look calm and respectable. Silk falls in smooth folds beneath the lamps. Gloves rest in narrow boxes. A row of perfume bottles catches the light with the confidence of objects that know they are not essential. You enter with your posture straight and your interest carefully measured. A lady may admire, compare, and purchase. She should not look as though she has been waiting all week to do any of those things. The bell above the door gives a small ring, and an assistant steps forward before you have decided which display deserves your first glance. In a fashionable shop, goods do not always sit within easy reach. Bolts of cloth are brought down from shelves and opened across the counter. Lace appears from tissue paper with the ceremony of a private document. Fine gloves slide from drawers one pair at a time. You do not rummage. The shop reveals itself in stages, allowing the assistant to study your dress and decide which price should be mentioned first. If the household is known, no money may change hands at all. You choose what you need, give the family name, and allow the account to be sent home. Credit makes the purchase feel almost weightless. No purse opens, no coins touch the counter. The bill arrives later, when the ribbon has already joined the wardrobe and developed a strong argument against being returned. In many marriages, your spending still depends on money controlled by your husband. A household account may be settled every month or quarter. Shops often extend generous credit to families with position, even when position has begun to outlive income. A lady can appear prosperous while the tradesman waits with patient concern behind the counter. You lift a length of silk. The assistant holds it toward the window so the colour changes with the light. A dressmaker will later shape it to your body and to the demands of fashion. Ready-made clothing becomes more common during the Victorian period, but a woman of means often relies on a dressmaker for important gowns. Fashion plates provide ideas. The dressmaker decides how those ideas can survive a real waist, a real doorway, and the household budget. Shopping, therefore, becomes a quiet partnership between taste and engineering. You choose the cloth. She knows whether the sleeve will allow you to lift a teacup. Gloves require closer judgment. They should fit neatly, and pale leather reveals dirt with remarkable honesty. The assistant measures your hand or offers a pair to try. You ease the glove over each finger, careful not to strain the seams. A companion may stand nearby and offer an opinion that sounds casual but carries the full weight of family taste. Preference is private until another woman is watching. Then it becomes evidence. Mourning shops occupy a more serious place along the street. Bereavement brings rules about colour and fabric, especially for widows and close relatives. Black dresses, veils, and accessories may be needed quickly after a death. Large establishments can provide an entire mourning wardrobe with impressive speed. Grief remains personal, but commerce is fully prepared for it. The window assures society that sorrow has recognised suppliers. At another counter, a porcelain cup is placed in your hand. You turn it gently, checking the glaze and the painted edge. A flaw that looks tiny here will become strangely visible once it reaches the breakfast table. Quality matters because the object may serve the household for years, or at least until a nervous maid meets a tray at the wrong angle. You decide against it and move on. Refusal must also look graceful. The assistant wraps the cup again without showing disappointment, which may be the most polished service offered in the entire shop. Department stores expand during the 19th century and gather many kinds of goods beneath one roof. Bright displays and refreshment rooms create spaces where respectable women can spend time without explaining every minute of the visit. This is a real form of freedom, though it arrives surrounded by counters and objects waiting to be bought. You may compare prices, but too much eagerness can appear ungenteel in an elegant shop. Knowing value is admirable. Looking delighted by a bargain is less secure. The shopkeeper bows and assures you that the colour is much requested. He knows whether it has sold. You know that he knows. Politeness allows the cloth to remain innocent. Behind the counter, the work is less graceful. Assistants may stand for long hours under strict rules. Shop work offers women an alternative to domestic service, yet wages can be low and freedom limited. The young woman fastening your glove may spend each day among luxury without being able to afford any of it. You notice that she looks tired and speak kindly. The kindness may ease the moment, though it will not shorten her shift. At last you select one modest purchase and another that is less modest but easier to defend. The parcels will be delivered. You step back into the street carrying only a small receipt, while the visible evidence travels home by another route. Nothing in your hand suggests appetite. That is the beauty of credit. Desire enters through the front door, and the bill arrives later with excellent manners. After luncheon, you turn from the sheltered order of the house toward charitable duty. A list of names waits on the table, each one connected to a family, a rent payment, or a cupboard that has grown too bare. Charity offers one of the few respectable ways for a Victorian lady to move beyond domestic life and do something close to public work. Society may call it duty rather than employment, but the hours are real, the decisions matter, and somebody must remember which widow has already received coal. You begin in another lady's drawing room, where a committee is gathered near the fire. The minutes from the previous meeting are read. A subscription has not been paid. The parish fund is lower than expected. Around you sit women who possess little formal political power, yet can raise money, organise volunteers, and persuade titled gentlemen to lend their names to a cause. Their work is public enough to influence a neighbourhood, but gentle language keeps it safely within the feminine sphere. Religious faith shapes much Victorian charity. Anglican parishes organise relief, while nonconformist and Catholic groups support schools, missions, and hospitals of their own. Belief can inspire sincere compassion. It can also make help conditional on a sermon, a tract, or a careful conversation about personal habits. A poor family may welcome the coal and feel less grateful for the moral instruction wrapped around it. Later, you visit a home with another woman from the committee. Going alone may be considered unwise, especially in an unfamiliar district. The street narrows as the carriage leaves the prosperous quarter. Smoke hangs between the buildings. Children watch from doorways. When you enter the room, its cold reaches you before the family speaks. A mother apologizes for the chair she offers. The apology is unnecessary, but poverty often forces people to excuse the very conditions for which they need help. You ask about work and rent. A child has been ill. The father has lost several days of wages. These questions are practical, yet they also place the household under inspection. Many Victorian charities distinguish sharply between the deserving and undeserving poor. A widow with children may attract sympathy. A man known to drink can bring suspicion upon the whole family. Relief committees want assurance that assistance will not encourage dependence. Poverty becomes something to investigate before it can be eased. The idea appears sensible in an account book. It feels less tidy when a hungry child is standing beside the grate. Your own response may be gentler than the form requires. You arrange for food or fuel. Perhaps the parish doctor should call. Perhaps a basket can be sent from your kitchen. Small acts matter when the cupboard is empty, yet the difference between giver and receiver remains. You can leave the room and return to warmth. The family cannot. Charity bazaars provide a brighter setting for the same work. Women sow goods for sale, arrange stalls, and persuade respectable crowds to spend money for a church roof or hospital bed. Music plays. Cakes appear. A gentleman buys an embroidered cushion he does not need, because refusing it would be noticed. The bazaar turns female skill and social influence into funds beneath the appearance of a pleasant afternoon. It also requires planning. A hall must be secured, accounts must be kept, volunteers must be placed where they are least likely to quarrel over the best table. A woman forbidden from many professions may reveal a remarkable talent for management, while everyone compliments the ribbons. Some women take charitable work much further. They visit workhouses, prisons and hospitals. Others campaign for better housing, nursing or education. Octavia Hill combines housing management with close personal oversight of tenants. Florence Nightingale turns nursing experience into a long campaign for sanitary reform. Their work shows how acceptable female service can grow into expert public action. Society often praises the devotion more readily than the authority. Your own duties may remain local. You collect a promised donation from a neighbour who has forgotten twice. You review the list of households receiving fuel. You help prepare clothing that will be useful rather than decorative. This labour is quiet, but it brings you into contact with lives that morning calls do not reveal. It may deepen sympathy. It may also strengthen the belief that your class knows how everyone else should live. Advice about cleanliness is common because dirt is treated as a moral issue as well as a physical one. A woman living with poor water and too little space may be told to air the room more thoroughly by someone whose own windows overlook a garden. The advice is not entirely wrong. It is simply easier to follow when another person carries the coal. Back at the committee table, the visit becomes a few lines beside a name. The room, the cold grate, and the mother's tired face are reduced to a recommendation. Paper makes need easier to organise. It also makes suffering look wonderfully neat. By late afternoon, you return home with mud along the edge of your boot and several new notes in the account book. You have helped, perhaps substantially. You have also asked questions that would feel deeply improper in your own drawing room. Victorian charity opens a door between classes, then pauses on the threshold to check whether the poor have scrubbed it. Luncheon arrives in the middle of the day with far less ceremony than dinner, and only slightly less meaning. The table is simply laid. A cold joint may wait beneath a cover, while bread and cheese stand ready nearby. The meal looks relaxed, though several servants have still prepared the room, carried the dishes, and arranged the informality to arrive on time. In a Victorian household, even cold beef understands the schedule. The hour varies. Luncheon may appear around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, fitting itself between morning calls and whatever the later day requires. Earlier in the century, some families still dine in the afternoon. As fashionable dinner moves later, luncheon grows into the space left behind. Breakfast has become distant, and evening remains several polite hours away. Hunger creates a new meal, then etiquette gives it a name. You enter the dining room, or settle in a smaller family room. In some houses, the dishes are placed on the table so everyone can help themselves. Elsewhere, a footman remains to serve. Informality depends greatly on how many people have been hired to produce it. Cold meat from the previous evening often returns. This is good management, not failure. A joint too large for one dinner can be sliced neatly and offered with pickles or salad. Cooked fish may appear with a sauce. A pie can conceal the earlier life of meat without requiring anyone to discuss it. The cook knows that leftovers must change enough to protect the household from recognition. Nothing is wasted if it can be renamed. Soup may come up in colder weather, especially when warmth is wanted without beginning another formal performance. Bread and cheese offer quieter support. Fruit may finish the meal when the season allows. A modest household serves what it can afford. A wealthy one may describe luncheon as light, while presenting enough choice to alarm a small boarding house. Your own appetite must remain calm within the loosened rules. You may eat heartily at home, but visible hunger still sits awkwardly beside the ideal of feminine delicacy. The corset has already reduced the available room, so manners and clothing quietly support one another. You take another slice only after the dish has travelled around the table. No one forbids it. The delay simply allows appetite to arrive wearing gloves. You take your place and unfold the napkin. If children are present, their manners continue to be watched. A son home from school may approach the cold joint with an appetite that threatens its future. A daughter speaks about her lessons. The governess may join you, depending on household custom, and her uncertain place becomes visible in the chair assigned to her and the freedom she is allowed in conversation. Luncheon shows family life more plainly than dinner, though even plainness remains dressed for company. A caller may still be in the house when the meal is announced. Whether she is asked to stay depends on intimacy. A close friend can accept without much ceremony. A formal acquaintance may refuse, even when hunger has begun making the decision less noble. To remain changes the visit. It grants access to a quieter hour and suggests that the guest belongs more comfortably within the household. The invitation therefore carries more weight than the soup. Your husband or father may return unexpectedly. The room adjusts around him. Another place appears. The cook sends up more food. He asks what has happened during the morning, which is difficult to answer because most of your work has been designed to look as though nothing happened at all. You mention a caller or a small household matter. Letters answered and servant difficulties settled remain beneath the calm surface. Domestic management succeeds by disappearing from the report. Conversation is easier than at dinner. There are fewer guests to impress and no long procession of courses controlling the room. Certain subjects remain unwise. Money can disturb digestion. Family disputes make cold meat feel colder. You speak instead about a book, a neighbour, or plans for the afternoon. A newspaper may lie folded near the window. A troubling letter can be read again between bites if concern has survived breakfast. The meal offers a pause, but never a complete one. A servant enters with a message. The carriage time has changed. A child needs attention upstairs. The housekeeper has remembered a repair. Luncheon absorbs interruption because it occupies the part of the day where duty is already fully awake. The servant's own meal below stairs may depend on when yours ends. Staff often eat after serving the family, which means a conversation that lingers pleasantly upstairs can keep several people waiting. The effect is invisible from your chair. Comfort often is. You finish with fruit or a small sweet. Tea may not be needed because afternoon tea waits later, though habits differ. The plates are cleared, and everyone returns to the work considered proper to them. You move toward charitable calls, shopping, or correspondence. The children return to lessons. Downstairs, the remaining meat may begin another respectable life in tomorrow's pie. Luncheon has filled the hollow between morning and evening without demanding applause. It is the quietest meal of the day, which may be why the household trusts it with every interruption. By afternoon, the light has softened across the drawing room, and tea arrives as a small promise of rest. The tray settles near your chair. Cups wait beside the pot, and a plate of thin bread and butter offers just enough food to admit that dinner is still far away. The room looks calm. This is useful, because conversation rarely is. Afternoon tea grows increasingly fashionable during the 19th century, as dinner moves later and the long gap after luncheon becomes difficult to ignore. Stories often credit Anna, Duchess of Bedford, with helping popularise the habit among the upper classes. Whether one woman deserves responsibility for every later cup matters less than the need itself. Hunger has always been punctual, even when dinner is not. You warm the pot before adding the leaves. Freshly boiled water follows, and the tea is allowed to steep. Milk waits in a small jug. Sugar sits nearby, common enough in a comfortable home but still treated with care. You pour for each guest, which places you at the quiet centre of the gathering. The task gives your hands something graceful to do while your ears collect everything else. People may disagree about whether milk belongs in the cup before or after the tea. Habit, class, and the strength of the china all enter the argument. Thin porcelain can be vulnerable to very hot liquid, though not every cup is waiting to crack from principle. What matters socially is that someone will notice your method and privately consider her own proof of better breeding. The leaves themselves have travelled much farther than any guest in the room. Earlier in the century, much British tea comes from China. Later, plantations in India and Ceylon supply a growing share, binding this gentle domestic ritual to imperial trade and hard labour far beyond the drawing room. None of that is visible in the polished pot. You judge the blend by scent and strength, perhaps favouring one merchant because his tea has never embarrassed you in company. A weak cup suggests economy. One brewed too long becomes bitter. The ideal is strong enough to revive the afternoon, while remaining mild enough to support conversation. Bread and butter is cut thin. Small cakes or biscuits may appear when the cook has had time. In a richer house, the spread can grow more decorative, but it should not become dinner disguised in lace. You offer the plate. A guest refuses once, then accepts, because politeness should not force hunger to suffer indefinitely. Conversation begins with safe subjects. A new novel is mentioned. Someone has attended a concert. A neighbour's daughter may be engaged, though the news is presented as uncertain after everyone in the room has already accepted it as fact. Tea provides excellent shelter for gossip. The cup occupies the hands while judgment crosses the carpet in softer clothing. An absent woman becomes the subject. No one accuses her directly. Concern is expressed. Her recent conduct is called surprising. A pause appears at exactly the right moment. By the time the sugar bowl returns to you, her reputation has been examined without anyone admitting that an examination took place. The servants remain part of the ritual even after leaving the tray. The quality of the cake reflects the cook. The shine of the silver reflects the housemaid. Fresh hot water may require another bell. A guest who praises the tea praises you, although several people have produced it. If the bread is stale, the failure travels upward more quickly than the credit. Children may join a family tea, particularly as the custom becomes more common in middle-class homes. They receive weak tea, milk, or another drink according to household ideas. Their hands are watched near the jam. A child who chooses the largest cake before a guest has selected one may receive a lesson in character disguised as table manners. The cake will still be eaten, but now under moral supervision. Tea can also offer genuine comfort. A close friend may arrive when the room is quiet. You pour without ceremony and allow the conversation to deepen. News that felt impossible during a formal call becomes manageable beside the fire. A cup warms the hands while grief or worry is spoken in a lower voice. The ritual protects intimacy by providing ordinary movements. You need not stare at one another. You can watch the tea darken and speak when ready. This is where the custom becomes more than display. It gives women time to exchange sympathy, advice, and information beyond the hearing of men who are elsewhere conducting the business officially recognised as important. Not every afternoon brings company. You may drink with a daughter or sit alone with a book. Outside, the garden darkens by degrees. For a few minutes, the day feels almost unclaimed. Then the clock reminds you that dressing for dinner will soon begin. The tray is cleared. Small rings remain where cups rested, delicate evidence that the room has briefly been warm and useful. Afternoon tea has offered comfort, news, and enough cake to carry everyone toward evening. It has also confirmed an engagement, weakened a reputation, and revealed who takes 2 sugars. The teaspoons return to the pantry with more information than most newspapers. The piano waits in the drawing room with its lid closed and a few sheets of music arranged nearby, as though culture has stepped out for a moment and intends to return before tea. You sit at the instrument and place your fingers on the keys. Lessons may have begun in childhood, when scales were practiced because music belonged to a proper education. The aim was not always professional mastery. A lady should play well enough to entertain a room, accompany a singer, or rescue the silence after dinner. She should not perform with such fierce purpose that anyone suspects she intends to be paid. The drawing room piano becomes evidence of refinement. It also becomes a large piece of furniture that cannot be ignored when no one has practiced for several days. Printed music grows cheaper during the 19th century, and popular songs, dances, and arrangements from operas circulate widely. You begin with a familiar piece. The melody moves through the room while a relative listens from a chair. A wrong note slips beneath your hand. You continue, because stopping would give the error more dignity than it deserves. Singing may follow. The voice should be trained but not theatrical in ordinary company. A dramatic performance can make listeners uneasy if it suggests that you have forgotten the drawing room and discovered a stage. Professional actresses and singers occupy a complicated social position. They may be admired in public while remaining unsuitable models for a sheltered daughter. You can borrow their music. You should not borrow too much of their confidence. Reading offers a quieter freedom. Circulating libraries make books available to a wide middle-class audience. Novels pass from household to household beneath the respectable protection of a subscription. You may read Dickens, Trollope, Eliot, or one of many writers whose stories bring crowded cities and difficult marriages into a peaceful room. Some novels are praised for moral purpose. Others are blamed for stirring emotion or encouraging young women to imagine lives beyond the one prepared for them. The danger of a book is that it can remain silent in your lap while opening a door no one else can see. History, biography, and religious works are generally considered safe. Science, philosophy, and politics may be read too, especially by educated women, but strong conclusions can become socially awkward. A lady is permitted intelligence. The room grows less certain when she uses it to disagree. Women nevertheless read widely and form firm opinions. Some write under their own names. Others use initials or male pen names to pass through assumptions that greet a female author before her first sentence has been judged. The century produces major women novelists, campaigners, scholars, and journalists. Their work proves that the border around suitable thought is neither natural nor secure. A monthly magazine may lie beside the novel, carrying essays, reviews, and serial fiction into the home. You can read one article aloud, while others sew or listen near the fire. The practice makes knowledge social and keeps the room companionable. It also allows a difficult idea to enter politely, disguised as something everyone happened to hear together. Sketching and watercolour provide another approved accomplishment. You may copy a landscape, paint flowers, or fill an album while travelling. The work trains observation and produces something pleasant enough to show a visitor. Formal artistic education is harder to obtain. Life drawing from the nude is often considered improper for respectable women, limiting the training available to serious students. A man may study the body in the name of art. A woman may paint a fern and be praised for delicacy. Some women push beyond these limits and become professional artists, though the path is narrower and mistakes are judged more harshly. Needlework occupies the hands when reading aloud or conversation slows. This is not the urgent mending done elsewhere in the house. Decorative embroidery can be displayed as accomplishment because necessity has been removed from the needle. You stitch a flower onto cloth that did not require one. The movement is steady and soothing. It also gives you a reason to lower your eyes when the conversation near the fireplace becomes foolish. Accomplishments enter courtship as well. A visitor may praise your playing or inspect a sketchbook. The compliment is not only about art, it suggests patience, refinement, and the ability to make a future home agreeable. Too little skill may look neglected. Too much mastery raises the awkward question of whether you care more for the work than for being admired while doing it. You must appear devoted enough to improve and relaxed enough to abandon the piano when company arrives. The balance is delicate. Yet these approved activities can create private territory within a restricted life. A book gives you thoughts no one has assigned. Music allows emotion to fill the room without requiring explanation. A sketch records what you noticed rather than what someone asked you to notice. The freedom is modest, but it is real. By late afternoon, you close the book or lower the music. The fire settles. For an hour, the mind has travelled farther than the body was permitted to go. You may have crossed a country in a novel or entered grief through a song. Then a voice from the doorway asks whether tea is coming. Culture has enlarged your world. The household would still like the cups. You settle near the window with a work basket beside your chair and a square of linen across your lap. The room is quiet enough for conversation, but not so quiet that anyone should suspect idleness. A needle passes through the cloth, disappears, and returns. The movement is small, steady, and socially reassuring. A Victorian lady may sit still for an hour, provided her hands can prove that the hour has not been wasted. Plain sewing has a practical place in the household. A loose seam can be strengthened before it opens. A child's garment may need a button. Fine linen sometimes requires a repair too delicate for rougher work below stairs. In a large home, servants perform most daily mending, Yet knowing how to sew still belongs to respectable female education. Skill with a needle suggests patience and thrift. It also offers protection from the dangerous appearance of having nothing to do. Decorative work carries a different purpose. Coloured thread becomes a flower along a cushion cover or a border around a small cloth. Wool is worked into slippers, covers, or gifts whose usefulness matters less than the care shown in making them. Crochet becomes fashionable during the Victorian period and spreads through printed patterns and women's magazines. Instructions travel from house to house, often written with the calm confidence of someone who assumes the reader has already understood the difficult part. Knitting remains both practical and decorative. You may make stockings or mittens, perhaps for a relative or a charitable collection. A small project can travel easily to another room and gives your fingers something to do when conversation begins circling the same subject. Needlework is useful in company because it allows you to listen without staring. You can lower your eyes, count stitches, and let another person finish a story that improved greatly in the telling. If the talk becomes awkward, the thread continues moving. A pause is filled. Someone changes the subject. The fabric has quietly protected the room. Girls learn sewing early because the skill is treated as part of becoming a woman. A governess may supervise a neat hem, while a mother inspects the result. Even wealthy daughters are expected to understand the basics. The lesson is not only about cloth. It teaches stillness, order, and the willingness to undo what impatience has spoiled. A crooked line must be unpicked. A knot cannot be persuaded into elegance by force of character. Pattern books offer endless ideas for gifts and household ornaments. Berlin wool work stitched in coloured wool on canvas becomes especially popular in the middle of the century. Its bold patterns suit cushions, footstools, and fire screens, allowing the drawing room to acquire another layer of floral certainty. Later in the century, sewing machines enter some prosperous homes and speed up long seams, though hand finishing still matters. The machine promises efficiency, but it also brings noise into a room that has spent years praising quiet feminine industry. Its treadle demands rhythm of a less decorative kind. A lady may admire the invention while leaving much of its harder use to a dressmaker or servant. Some projects require real skill. Others exist mainly because a bare surface has been judged lonely. A screen may receive embroidered panels. A chair back acquires protection it never requested. Victorian rooms welcome these objects because they make time visible. A guest can admire the pattern and understand that someone has spent many careful hours proving devotion to the furniture. Needlework can also carry affection. A handkerchief marked with initials becomes personal. A small cap may be prepared for a baby not yet born. A daughter living elsewhere may receive something made by a familiar hand. Such objects hold memory because the labour remains visible in every stitch. They can outlast the maker, preserving warmth in a way that a formal speech rarely manages. Charitable sewing gives the activity moral weight. Women gather to make shirts, blankets, or baby clothes for poor families and hospitals. The room may be comfortable, but the work is intended for lives that are not. This help can be sincere and useful. It can also reduce a large problem to the size of a finished garment. A family may need better wages or safer housing. What arrives is a carefully sewn shirt. Still, warmth is warmth, and practical aid does not become meaningless because the donors had good tea. Not every woman enjoys this work. Some find the rhythm soothing. Others find it dull and continue because empty hands invite comment. You may listen while someone reads aloud, allowing the mind to travel while the fingers remain respectable. This is one of the quiet freedoms hidden inside the task. Society sees patience. Your thoughts may be somewhere entirely different. As the afternoon fades, the thread becomes harder to see. Lamps will soon be lit, but fine work beneath artificial light can tire the eyes. You complete the final stitch and smooth the linen across your knee. The seam will hold, the small flower is nearly even. The room has passed an hour without looking idle. You place the work back in the basket and rise for dinner dressing. The cushion has gained a rose. Your private thoughts have escaped without leaving a single stitch behind. As evening approaches, the bedroom receives you for a second beginning. The morning dress must come off, the dinner gown must be prepared, and the careful work of becoming presentable starts again. Your maid has already revived the fire and laid out what the evening requires. The room glows more warmly now, but the ritual remains exact. You have already lived one day. Society would like another version of you downstairs. Walking boots are removed first. Dust is brushed from the hem before the dress goes away. The bodice loosens, and your shoulders enjoy a brief moment of honesty. That relief does not last. The underlayers are checked and adjusted because the dinner gown has been cut for the same fashionable outline as the clothes you wore earlier. A fresh chemise may be needed if the day has been warm. The corset remains or is tightened again, depending on habit and comfort. Dinner cannot begin until the body has returned to agreement with the wardrobe. Evening dress allows richer fabrics and more display than daytime clothing. Silk catches the lamplight. Velvet appears in colder weather. A married woman may wear a lower neckline at a formal dinner, while a young unmarried woman is often dressed more modestly. Sleeves may shorten, leaving the arms bare enough to require long gloves. The clothing tells the room about age, rank, and marital status before anyone has reached the soup. Your maid lifts the gown carefully. You step into the skirt, or the bodice settles over your shoulders. Many fastenings run down the back, placing independence just beyond reach. Hooks and eyes close one by one. A stubborn fastening resists near the waist. The maid pauses, smooths the fabric, and tries again without allowing the difficulty to become a comment on luncheon. The skirt is shaken gently so the folds fall as intended. If a bustle is worn, the drapery must be arranged so it looks shaped by fashion rather than defeated by gravity. A good dinner gown depends on work that should disappear once you enter the room below. The dressmaker has cut the fabric. The maid has pressed and mended it. You will receive the compliment. The gown itself may have been altered more than once as fashion shifted or your body changed. Expensive fabric is too valuable to abandon merely because sleeves have taken a new direction. A skilled dressmaker can reshape a bodice, add trimming, or turn an older skirt into something that appears newly obedient to fashion. Guests may see novelty where the household sees careful economy. The old silk has not disappeared. It has merely returned with better trimming and confidence restored for one more evening. This is another evening skill. Money must be used wisely, but wisdom should never arrive looking tired. Hair needs attention, though not always a complete rebuilding. The morning arrangement may be refreshed or lifted into a more elaborate evening style. Pins that have begun to pull are removed. A curl near the face is encouraged back into place. A comb or ribbon changes the effect, while a small ornament catches the light. Your scalp has spent the day learning exactly where discomfort lives. The maid moves one pin, and the relief feels almost luxurious. Jewellery comes later because it must suit both the gown and the company. Pearls suggest quiet elegance. Gold, cameos, or coloured stones may be chosen according to family means and fashion. Some pieces carry history. A brooch may have belonged to your mother. A locket may preserve a portrait or a lock of hair. The object at your throat is not merely decoration. It can be affection, inheritance, and duty, held together by a clasp no larger than a fingernail. Scent is applied lightly. Heavy perfume would enter the dining room before you and remain after the conversation deserved to end. A little at the wrists or throat is enough. Cosmetics require greater care. Obvious paint is still linked in many respectable minds with actresses or women thought improper. The ideal is to appear naturally fresh after a process that has involved several tools, another woman, and a mirror placed under good light. Powder can soften shine. A discreet touch of colour may be used, though it should not look used. Fatigue must be hidden without giving the concealment a name. Below stairs, the meal is moving toward readiness. Servants light lamps and carry dishes into position. Guests may already be arriving in the hall. The faint sounds beyond the door change the room. It begins to feel like the side of a stage before an entrance. Your maid hears the movement and works faster without appearing hurried. She fastens a bracelet, checks the fall of the skirt, and steps back. You stand before the mirror and inspect the whole effect. The fabric catches the lamplight, the hair remains secure, nothing reveals the loose thread repaired earlier or the hook that required persuasion. That concealment is part of the success. You thank the maid. Perhaps warmly, perhaps while already thinking about the guests, she gathers the discarded clothes as you move toward the door. The woman who woke beside the coal fire has disappeared beneath silk and polish. Dinner is ready to meet you. Your feet are less enthusiastic. The dining room glows beneath lamps and candles, every surface polished until effort has vanished from sight. Glass catches the light. Silver waits beside china. The tablecloth lies so smoothly that one displaced fork would appear to have formed an opinion. You enter on the arm of the gentleman assigned to you and take the place chosen by the hostess. He may be charming. He may wish to explain drainage. The seating card has already decided how much of the evening belongs to either possibility. The room has been preparing for hours. Flowers stand at the centre, low enough to permit conversation if the arranger has been merciful. In a grand household, decorative silver displays wealth that someone below stairs has polished since morning. By the time the guests arrive, the labour has become shine. A host or hostess decides where each person will sit. Rank matters, but so do age, friendship, and family tension. Husbands and wives are often separated so the table will not divide into familiar pairs. Two quiet guests may be placed together in the hope that they will rescue one another. A difficult gentleman may be seated beside a woman known for patience, which is a compliment only when viewed from the other end of the table. You lower yourself into the chair and arrange the skirt. A bustle requires space and judgment. A footman moves behind you. Napkins unfold. The first course arrives with the controlled silence of an event rehearsed by everyone except the guests. In households using service à la Russe, dishes come in sequence and are offered by servants or placed before each diner. This keeps the food warmer than older styles of service, when many dishes might be set on the table together. It also gives the meal a steady rhythm. One delay below stairs can leave a room full of dressed people, studying the flowers while pretending not to wonder where the fish has gone. Soup is placed before you. No one begins too quickly, though waiting too long allows the surface to cool. Spoons rise almost together. Nobody announces the moment. Everyone somehow knows. Good service makes the staff nearly invisible, though the dinner depends on them completely. A footman offers bread. Plates change between courses. The butler watches the wine and the pace of the room. A dropped spoon would sound enormous, but the servant responsible is expected to recover as if metal regularly chooses the floor. The dishes continue. A printed menu card may stand near each place at a grand dinner, allowing guests to see the journey ahead without openly preparing for it. In less formal homes, the courses remain a surprise, which is useful when the kitchen has changed its mind. Fish may follow soup. Meat arrives later with vegetables and sauces suited to it. Game can appear in season. Puddings, creams, or pastry may come before fruit and nuts. The order varies with the decade and the household, but abundance is not simply about hunger. It proves that the kitchen can produce variety, and that servants can deliver it without allowing the effort to enter the dining room. You eat carefully. Silk and sauce are natural enemies. The corset has placed a practical limit on appetite, and the gentleman beside you asks a question at the exact moment your mouth is full. This is one of society's older traditions. You finish, answer, and resist the temptation to look at the clock. Wine accompanies the meal according to means and custom. The butler may pour different wines with different courses. You can decline or drink only a little. A man who takes too much may be called merry. A woman doing the same risks becoming a subject. The distinction is unfair and dressed for dinner. Conversation moves in waves. The hostess listens for silence and offers another topic when necessary. A successful dinner gives each guest enough attention without allowing one voice to occupy the entire table. This becomes difficult when a gentleman mistakes the meal for Parliament. You listen while waiting to see whether the next course offers escape. Across the flowers, another woman catches your eye. No expression changes, yet an entire opinion passes between you. Family dinners may be easier, but formal evenings demand continued performance. You must remember the names of people met only once, respond warmly to stories heard before, and avoid turning toward the more agreeable guest on your other side too often. The hostess notices who is neglected. A successful table keeps attention circulating like the wine, though both may pause beside one gentleman longer than anyone intended. Unexpected moments still occur. A candle gutters. Someone finds a bone where elegance promised none. A servant mishears a request. The room absorbs each event and continues. That ability to continue may be its finest accomplishment. At last, the final dishes are cleared. Finger bowls may appear after fruit, allowing you to rinse the fingertips delicately. The ritual can puzzle an inexperienced guest, which is why everyone watches without seeming to watch. When the hostess rises, the ladies follow. You leave the table in a quiet movement of skirts, carrying the memory of every remark and none of the plates. Behind you, servants begin clearing the evidence. Dinner has displayed the household at its most polished. The kitchen will now spend hours removing the polish from the pans. At dinner, conversation requires the same care as the glassware. You must speak enough to appear engaged, listen enough to appear gracious, and show intelligence without leaving anyone near you searching for his own. A good remark opens the table. A careless one can close it. The safest subjects move lightly between courses, while money, religion, family bitterness, and bodily detail remain close enough to cause trouble if invited. You begin with the gentleman beside you, who asks whether you have travelled in Scotland. This is useful territory. Travel allows people to discuss scenery, weather, hotels, and railway food without exposing much that is private. You answer and return a question, giving him enough room to tell a story. Good conversation helps the other person appear interesting. It also requires memory. A question about a guest's sister shows attention, provided you have remembered the correct sister and have not confused her engagement with someone else's illness. Social knowledge is useful, but it must not look collected. You remember names, connections, and recent events, while pretending the information has simply remained with you out of affection. A lady who listens well can guide the exchange without looking as though she has taken control. Books offer another path. A new novel can be praised for its characters or discussed in broad moral terms. If it challenges marriage, religion, or the position of women, you may admire the writing before deciding whether the table can safely manage the rest. Intelligence is welcome when wrapped in tact. A sharp observation may delight the room, yet the same remark can be called unfeminine by a man who has interrupted 3 people before the fish. Humour helps when it remains gentle. A small comment about the weather can draw laughter without leaving anyone wounded. Sarcasm is more dangerous because it often leaves a body behind. You may think it. You should not always serve it with the sauce. Politics can be discussed in many households, especially when guests share similar views. The difficulty begins when agreement proves temporary. A gentleman may raise his voice and forget that servants are waiting with the next course. The hostess changes direction by asking another guest about a journey or concert. Within moments, Parliament has been moved away from the soup without suffering any lasting injury. Religion requires equal care. Faith is central to Victorian life, but doctrinal differences divide families and communities. Anglican, Catholic, and nonconformist opinions may sit near one another at the same table. A formal dinner is rarely the best place to discover whether a guest believes everyone else is in error. The aim is not dishonesty. It is to prevent dessert from becoming responsible for salvation. Money is impolite because it reveals the structure beneath appearances. You do not ask what a gown cost or how much income a family possesses. Business may be discussed in general terms, but personal finances remain hidden unless trouble has already made them public. This silence allows strained households to dine beside wealthier neighbours without explaining the silver. It also gives unpaid bills another peaceful evening. Illness can be mentioned, though bodily detail must be softened. A relative may be recovering from fever or suffering with nerves. The exact behaviour of the stomach is moved away from the pudding. Victorians are not unaware of the body. They simply prefer certain truths to wait outside the dining room. Grief may enter too, especially when a household is in mourning. A quiet word of sympathy can be kind. Persistent questions become cruel while pretending to be concerned. Servants form another dangerous subject because they are present and hear more than the table admits. Complaining about a maid while a footman stands behind your chair is both unkind and unwise. Even praise can expose information better kept within the household. You wait until privacy is real, which may not happen until the bedroom door closes. Courtship and marriage prospects are approached through hints. An absent young man is called attentive. A daughter is said to enjoy a certain family's company. Nothing is declared because declaration removes the pleasure of collective suspicion. Older women guide the subject while younger women appear not to understand. Everyone understands. You feel the table tilt when one guest mentions a family quarrel. The words are mild, but the edge beneath them is clear. You answer with a question about a recent concert. Another guest accepts the rescue, and music covers the quarrel before it reaches the fruit. This skill is not trivial. In a world where reputation matters, graceful redirection keeps relationships from breaking in public. It also requires constant attention. You must hear what is being said and what is trying to enter behind it. The hostess carries much of this burden across the whole table. She notices the guest who has not spoken and the pair who have spoken only to each other. A question sent across the flowers can bring someone back into the room. This looks effortless when done well. In truth, she is conducting several conversations while eating dinner in a bodice that would make deep breathing an ambitious hobby. The final course arrives, and the room relaxes slightly. A gentleman tells a harmless story that has improved since the last time he told it. You smile at the proper point and let a brief silence rest before asking another question. The conversation has crossed dangerous ground without losing a wheel. Dessert remains upright. By polite standards, the evening is going beautifully. After dinner, the ladies leave the dining room in a soft movement of silk and enter the gentler light of the drawing room. Behind you, the gentlemen remain with wine, cigars, and the confidence that civilization can survive for 20 minutes without upholstered supervision. The door closes. Gloves loosen. Skirts settle around chairs. The room appears more comfortable than the dining room, though comfort does not remove the need for care. The hostess chooses a seat and the others arrange themselves nearby. Tea or coffee may arrive if the evening will continue. A servant places the tray, then withdraws, leaving the room to flowers, lamp oil, and women who understand more than they are expected to say. The first conversation often concerns the meal just left behind. The soup is praised. Someone admires the flowers. The hostess accepts each compliment on behalf of a household whose staff are now clearing plates below stairs. Without men present, the talk may change. Women can speak more plainly about children, illness, household strain, or the difficulties of marriage. An older woman offers advice to a younger one. A widow mentions loneliness without having the moment repaired by a gentleman explaining railways. This is not freedom from every rule, but it can be a place of real understanding. Shared experience allows a sentence to remain unfinished because the other women already know where it leads. A mother can admit that the nursery has been difficult. A wife may speak of money without giving exact figures. A woman whose health has failed can describe weariness without being accused of spoiling dinner. Such conversations are not always deep, but they can offer a rare moment in which duty is named rather than polished. Yet rivalry and rank have followed you into the room. One woman's gown is newer, another has received an invitation everyone wanted, a daughter's engagement appears secure, while another family waits for an offer that has not come. Compliments can carry edges. A guest tells you how well you look, placing just enough warmth on the words to suggest that you did not look well before. You thank her pleasantly. The most dangerous remarks often arrive dressed as concern. Gossip enters by an equally polite door. Someone asks after an absent acquaintance and expresses hope that she is quite well. Another woman has heard that the acquaintance has been travelling. A third knows with whom. Nobody makes an accusation. The facts are placed gently into the room and allowed to arrange themselves. Reputation can weaken beneath voices barely louder than the fire. You listen and decide whether silence is safest. Silence itself can be read as agreement, disapproval, or good sense. The interpretation belongs to everyone else. The room itself encourages this mixture of ease and performance. Family portraits watch from the walls. Small tables hold albums, flowers, and ornaments gathered over years. The furniture is softer than the dining chairs, though a fashionable sofa may still require careful negotiation with a bustle. Every object suggests domestic peace. None mentions the account book, the sick child, or the argument postponed until tomorrow morning. The women seated among them know how much management peace requires. The piano offers rescue when the room needs another occupation. A young woman is asked to play and rises with the composed reluctance expected from someone who has practiced the piece for weeks. Music fills the room. Conversation lowers near the back. Her mother watches for signs that the guests understand the performance as talent, discipline, and evidence of a well-managed daughter. A song may follow. Applause remains warm but measured. Cards or simple games can appear in some households. Elsewhere, an album passes from hand to hand or someone reads aloud. Each activity keeps the evening moving and prevents the gathering from relying entirely on conversation. This is useful because even pleasant company becomes demanding after several hours in formal dress. The lamps need attention as the evening continues. Gaslight brightens many prosperous urban homes, while oil lamps remain common elsewhere. Both warm the room and add their own faint smell. The light flatters silk but deepens the shadows beneath tired eyes. You sit with your back carefully placed and feel the day settling through the bodice. A yawn must be hidden behind a fan or turned into a thoughtful breath after the music. Fatigue remains private until the carriage is called. Eventually, the gentlemen return. Their entrance changes the room before anyone speaks. Voices adjust, chairs shift. A trace of cigar smoke follows them, despite every effort by the upholstery to remain respectable. Your husband looks comfortable after spending the interval with wine while you maintained another room. Nobody calls this division unfair. It is simply called the evening. The final hour may bring another song, a little more talk, or the first sound of carriages outside. One guest rises, then another. Shawls are fetched. Farewells unfold through repeated hopes that everyone will meet again soon. At last the room begins to empty. The flowers remain upright. Cushions hold the shape of people who carried their weariness politely. You have listened, reassured, admired, and avoided several traps. The lamps burn lower now. The pressure has not disappeared. It has merely learned to speak in a softer voice. The drawing room has been turned slightly toward the piano. One chair has moved nearer the fire, the music has been opened, and every guest now wears the alert expression of someone who has agreed to be entertained before learning what the entertainment will require. A cousin stands beside the instrument with a poem folded in one hand. You smile encouragingly. Home amusement is meant to reveal refinement, though it has an unfortunate habit of revealing who practiced and who trusted confidence to do the work instead. Respectable families cannot spend every evening at a theatre or concert, so culture is invited indoors, where relatives can supervise it and servants can move the furniture afterward. The piano is especially useful. It fills a silence, accompanies a singer, and allows a daughter to display years of lessons without suggesting that she intends to earn money from them. A lady may be talented. She should merely avoid looking ambitious enough to send an invoice. You may be asked to begin. Refusing once shows modesty. Refusing again makes the hostess work harder. You rise, settle the skirt, and sit at the keys while the room grows quiet. The piece is familiar, chosen because familiarity offers shelter when nerves begin rearranging the notes. Your fingers remember the opening. A difficult passage approaches, and one note lands slightly apart from where the composer placed it. You continue. Stopping would give the error a dignity it has not earned. The audience listens kindly because each person knows the request may soon travel around the room. When the last chord fades, applause arrives with warm restraint. No one demands an encore, which is either tact or mercy. A young woman sings next. You remain at the piano and accompany her, watching the music for the moment when the page must turn. Too early, and the melody is interrupted. Too late, and the singer reaches the edge with the expression of someone discovering a cliff. You wait, lift the sheet, and settle it quietly. Her voice may be lovely, small, or brave. Whatever its quality, the room supports her. Domestic performance depends upon a generous understanding that effort deserves protection from accuracy. Recitation carries a different danger. Poetry and dramatic readings are popular because they require little equipment beyond memory and a willingness to stand near the mantel. Your cousin begins confidently. The first lines arrive with feeling, then one line disappears. He pauses, looking upward as though the missing words may be written on the ceiling. Everyone studies the carpet to preserve his dignity. Someone whispers the next phrase. The poem resumes, slightly damaged but still alive. Amateur theatricals and charades can make the evening livelier. A curtain is improvised between rooms. Old clothing becomes costume. Guests act out a word while the others guess it. This gives serious adults permission to behave foolishly under the protection of rules. A solemn uncle appears in a shawl. A quiet aunt becomes unexpectedly persuasive as a highwayman. Servants help find props and shift chairs, though their reviews are likely to be delivered later in the kitchen, where honesty enjoys fewer restrictions. Tableau may also be arranged, with guests posing silently as scenes from history or literature while the rest identify the subject. This is acting for people who prefer not to remember lines. Table games offer a quieter diversion. Cards may be played when stakes remain modest. Word games test memory and wit. In consequences, answers are written, folded, and passed along until unrelated names and actions form a ridiculous story. The game is harmless until someone chooses a name too close to current gossip. You write carefully. Wit is welcome, but a joke that strikes the truth may remain in the household longer than the guest who made it. Some evenings include a professional musician, lecturer, or reciter. Hiring a performer raises the tone and spares visitors from being asked to sing without warning. Reading aloud is another dependable choice. A guest with a clear voice can carry a story across the room while others sew or listen near the fire. The success depends less on drama than on knowing when the chapter should end. Yet even a skilled guest must compete with domestic life. A late arrival interrupts the beginning. A bracelet catches against lace. Two people whisper at the back with the belief that distance has made them silent. The performer continues beneath conditions that would make a concert hall seem tender. The lamps warm the room as the evening lengthens. Fans open. A window may be raised, beginning a small disagreement with the night air. Your own attention drifts for a moment. The day has been long, and a gentle melody can make sleep feel like a reasonable cultural response. You recover before anyone notices. In lamplight, looking thoughtful and looking tired are fortunate relations. A duet is proposed. Two young women sit together and negotiate both rhythm and elbows. When they remain in time, the result is charming. When they separate, each continues so firmly that the piano appears to be arguing with itself. The final chord arrives from two directions and is greeted with sincere relief. At last, the hostess closes the music and suggests refreshments. The performers receive praise. The listeners receive tea. Those who escaped participation look politely disappointed. The evening has displayed training, courage, and one cousin's uncertain relationship with the middle of a poem. Everyone calls it delightful. This is kind, and in several cases essential to family peace. The carriage arrives long after the hour when sensible people begin thinking fondly of bed. A servant wraps your cloak around the evening gown, and you lift the skirt clear of the step before settling into the dark interior. The wheels begin moving through the night. Beyond the glass, lamps pass one by one while the household behind you remains awake for your eventual return. A ball or reception may begin late because dinner has already ended late. People with no need to rise for paid labour can afford to treat midnight as part of the programme. By the time you reach the house, other carriages are waiting at the entrance. Footmen open doors beneath bright lamps. Names are announced. Cloaks disappear into a room where servants attempt to preserve order among garments that all look valuable and several that look identical. You enter beneath gaslight. Mirrors double the crowd and return it from every wall. Flowers soften the room, while the lamps make it warm enough to test both powder and patience. The air carries perfume, waxed floors, and the closeness of too many people behaving as though no one is watching. Everyone is watching. At a ball, the dance card gives the evening its shape. It may hang from your wrist with a small pencil attached. A gentleman asks for a quadrille or waltz, and his name is written beside it. The card prevents confusion and gives each promise the weight of a tiny contract. It also preserves evidence. Too many dances with one man attract attention. Refusing one gentleman and accepting another for the same number can create an offence set neatly to music. The dances change with fashion. Quadrilles place several couples into ordered figures that reward memory and punish distraction. Polkas bring quicker movement. The waltz, once criticised for the closeness of the partners, becomes well established during the Victorian period, though it remains intimate enough to assist courtship. You must know when to turn and where to finish without showing that arithmetic has entered the ballroom. Your partner offers his arm and leads you into position. Proper introduction matters before he asks. A stranger cannot simply appear from the crowd and claim the next waltz because the orchestra has begun. Gloves prevent bare hands from meeting, but they do not prevent awareness. The orchestra begins. The floor moves beneath a sweep of skirts and dark coats. Mirrors catch the motion until the room appears larger and faster than it is. For several minutes the rules feel lighter because they have become movement. You turn with the music, and conversation comes in brief pieces between steps. A dance gives more privacy than a formal call, though older relatives sit along the edge with the attention of customs officers. A shared laugh can feel secret even when half the room has seen it. Between dances you return to a chaperone or walk through the rooms with suitable company. Refreshments may wait elsewhere. Lemonade offers relief from the heat. Small sandwiches and ices provide enough food to continue, though eating in gloves and a fitted bodice discourages enthusiasm. The supper room carries its own quiet strategy. Who escorts you will be noticed. Where you sit may matter. A young man who brings a plate without being asked can appear attentive. A second plate may begin to look like policy. Not every woman dances as often as she hoped. A young lady without partners may sit through several sets while pretending to enjoy the music for its own sake. The disappointment is public because a ballroom turns popularity into something visible. Another woman's card may be full before the evening has properly begun. Beauty helps, but family connections, fortune and reputation move through the room just as surely as the orchestra's rhythm. A thoughtful hostess may ask a reliable gentleman to dance with someone overlooked. He accepts with courtesy. She accepts without showing that rescue has occurred. The tune carries the moment away, though both will remember it. Kindness at a ball is rarely invisible to the person who needed it. Receptions, concerts and lectures offer different arrangements of the same social work. At a concert, you sit beneath strong light and listen, while also noticing who has entered late. At a lecture, knowledge may be the official purpose, though society still manages to observe gowns and acquaintances around it. A reception allows guests to move through rooms, speaking briefly before being carried onward by the crowd. Whatever the event, your body remains part of the performance. The gloves must stay clean. The fan opens at the proper moment. Weariness should not reach the face before the hostess has been thanked. Near midnight, the flowers begin to droop and the room grows closer. Your feet ache inside delicate shoes. Another dance begins, and the right partner can make the discomfort retreat for a little while. This is why the evening remains powerful. It offers motion, attention, and the possibility that an ordinary glance may become tomorrow's news. At last, the carriage is called. Cloaks return from the confusion, though one woman receives the wrong one before the mistake is quietly corrected. You step into the cold air with music still sounding behind you. The night has offered romance, calculation, and one crushed toe. Society calls it pleasure because everyone stayed awake long enough to prove it. The same gentleman has appeared beside you 3 times this evening, which is enough to become noticeable without being enough for anyone to mention. His name sits on your dance card. Earlier, he found your chair near the piano with an ease that looked accidental from a distance. Now, across the room, your mother has begun observing him with the calm attention usually given to weather that may become serious. Victorian courtship rarely unfolds in private. Affection grows in rooms where family members, friends and servants can follow its progress almost as quickly as the people involved. A respectable introduction generally comes first. The gentleman is known to the household or presented by someone whose judgment carries weight. This does not make him suitable, it merely allows him to stand near you without alarming the furniture. His family background matters because marriage joins more than 2 people. It can join property, debts, habits, and relations who intend to visit. Your parents may ask about his income and prospects. They may consider his faith, health, and reputation. A man can be charming during a waltz and still be a poor choice for 30 years of breakfast. Your feelings matter, though their power differs from one family to another. Many parents hope their daughters will marry happily, and a woman can refuse a proposal. Yet money narrows freedom. A daughter with little fortune may face dependence upon relatives if she remains unmarried. An heiress may attract attention from men whose interest strengthens whenever her income is mentioned. Love enters the room, but the furniture has already been arranged by economics. Courtship therefore happens in company. A gentleman calls at the house and sits where another person may enter at any moment. During a walk, a companion remains near enough to protect appearances. At a ball, a dance offers a few minutes together while a chaperone watches from the edge. Privacy exists in fragments. Etiquette does not remove flirtation. It gives flirtation better furniture. A look held a little too long can carry meaning without any secret code. A second dance shows preference. A book lent and returned may contain a marked passage, though underlining too boldly makes literature responsible for intentions it did not express. A flower kept after an evening becomes precious because larger gestures remain restricted. The smallest actions grow heavy when open affection is not permitted to move freely. Servants notice because they handle the evidence. A footman recognizes how often one card arrives. A maid sees which gown you choose when a certain family is expected. She may know that you have reread one letter before your mother suspects there is a letter worth reading. The staff say little upstairs. Below stairs, the attachment may be several chapters ahead. Letters offer greater freedom and greater danger. A private note allows honesty that conversation may not. It can also be lost, discovered, or preserved long after wisdom would prefer it burned. Secret correspondence raises the stakes because secrecy itself can damage reputation. You may lock a letter inside a desk, but locks are only as private as the people who possess other keys. Continued attention soon becomes expectation. Friends begin placing your names near each other in conversation. An aunt asks an innocent question, with no innocent purpose. If the families approve, the path may lead toward a proposal. If they do not, every meeting becomes more difficult. Religion can divide an attachment. A difference in social position may be judged impossible. Income may simply be too small to support the life expected after marriage. Affection must answer questions that the heart did not place on the examination paper. The proposal itself may come during a conversation private enough for honesty, but close enough to the household for propriety. He speaks directly at last. The words may be tender or awkward. They may have been practiced so carefully that they sound borrowed. You can accept, ask for time, or refuse. Acceptance begins another round of family discussion. Marriage settlements may be arranged where property is involved. Legal rights matter because marriage changes a woman's position. During much of the Victorian period, a married woman's independent control over property is limited by the law of coverture. The Married Women's Property Acts of 1870 and 1882 improve her ability to control wages and property. Custom, however, does not change as quickly as legislation. The romantic answer still leads toward money, residence, and who will hold authority inside the new home. Refusal requires equal care. A man may recover from rejection with wounded pride and a journey. A woman risks being called difficult or foolish, especially if the refusal becomes public. A broken engagement can harm her more severely than him. Letters may be returned. Friends receive a softened explanation. Society accepts whichever version provides better conversation. Emotional pain must then fit around ordinary duties. Breakfast still arrives. Calls must still be returned. The drawing room opens on the usual afternoon. Hope can disappear in one letter, yet the household schedule will not pause to recognize the loss. Across the ballroom, the gentleman approaches once more. Your mother looks toward the flowers with great concentration. A servant carries a tray past without appearing to see anything. You exchange a few words and agree to the next dance. Love may be beginning. Respectability has already taken attendance. The bedroom receives you back from public life, one fastening at a time. The last guest has departed, the corridor is dim, and the fire has settled into a red glow beneath the grate. Your maid closes the door and begins at the back of the gown, where the hooks have waited all evening beyond your reach. One releases, then another. The bodice loosens. Before the fabric has left your shoulders, you take the fullest breath of the night. Fine clothing must be handled with more care than the tired person wearing it. The skirt is lifted rather than dropped and placed across a chair where the silk will not crush. Your maid examines the hem for damp or dirt. Tomorrow it may need brushing, airing, or a small repair. A gown survives because work continues after admiration has ended. Gloves come off slowly, each finger eased free so the leather is not stretched. Pale gloves record the evening with unwanted accuracy. A mark from wine or a dark railing remains until daylight can judge it properly. They are laid flat beside the dressing table. Jewellery follows. A bracelet opens at the clasp. Earrings leave a faint pressure behind. The necklace is lifted away and placed in its case. Valuable pieces may be locked up for the night. This does not mean every servant is suspected. It means wealth prefers trust when supported by a key. Hairpins begin to gather on the table. Your maid works by touch, removing the visible ornaments before finding the pins hidden beneath the structure. A comb comes free. A pad or false piece is lifted away. The arrangement softens, then falls. Long hair settles over your shoulders, heavier than it appeared while pinned. Your scalp feels strangely light where the tightest pin had been. You rub one tender place while the maid begins brushing. The strokes are slower now. Dust and pomade move through the length. Loose strands collect in the brush and may be saved for later use. The face in the mirror changes as the evening is removed. Without formal hair and jewellery, you look younger, older, or simply honest. Powder is wiped away with a cloth and water or a little cold cream. The skin beneath has carried heat from the lamps and the closeness of crowded rooms. A cool cloth across the forehead feels more luxurious than the necklace did. Layer by layer, the public outline comes apart. The corset cover and petticoats are removed, ties loosen. Fabric gathers in the maid's arms and is placed aside in an order that will make tomorrow easier. At last, the corset laces slacken. The pressure leaves gradually rather than through one theatrical escape. You draw a deeper breath and feel the ribs move with greater freedom. Marks may remain where the garment pressed after a long evening. A well-fitted corset need not be an instrument of agony, but removing it still changes the body's sense of space. For a moment, standing without its support can feel free and oddly uncertain, as though posture itself has gone off duty. The nightdress waits near the fire. It is loose, high at the neck, and intended for warmth. A dressing gown may follow while the room is prepared for bed. In colder weather, the sheets may have been warmed before you arrive. A warming pan filled with embers can be passed between them, then removed before the bed becomes an experiment. A hot water bottle may offer quieter comfort. The bedroom is still colder than a modern room, so warmth must be placed where the body needs it. Comfort has finally become more important than outline, though modesty remains fully awake. Your maid brings a little water for washing and perhaps helps remove the last traces of scent from the wrists. The hair may be braided loosely for the night so it does not tangle against the pillow. A chamber pot remains discreetly nearby, another practical object hidden beneath furniture designed to suggest that bodies have agreed not to inconvenience the architecture. She can tell how tired you are from the way you sit, even when you say the evening went very well. At this hour, the relationship grows quieter. After a day of formal speech, few words are needed. Perhaps she mentions a seam that must be repaired. Perhaps you ask whether she has eaten. The answer may remind you that her day has continued around yours. Below stairs, footmen are clearing glasses. The butler checks the silver and secures the doors. Kitchen servants finish washing what dinner required. A housemaid may still be carrying water or closing shutters. Your day ends because theirs has not quite ended yet. The candle is placed where it can be reached safely and extinguished without leaning across loose fabric. Fire is an ordinary household danger, especially in rooms filled with curtains and clothing. The bell pull remains beside the bed, available if you need assistance later. A considerate mistress may hesitate before using it for anything small. Once dismissed, the maid gathers the gown and turns toward the door. You thank her. The latch closes softly, and for the first time since morning, you are alone. The room holds the faint sound of rain and the occasional movement of coal in the grate. You slide beneath the covers and feel the mattress take the weight the corset carried all day. The public woman has been brushed, folded, and locked into cases. Tomorrow morning, someone will unpack her again. Near midnight, the house becomes quiet enough for small sounds to matter. A final footstep crosses the passage below. Coal shifts in the grate. Rain touches the window and then settles into a steady whisper. You lie beneath the bed curtains with your hair loose against the pillow, while the clothing that explained you all day hangs silently across a chair. For the first time since morning, no one is waiting for an answer. Your mind, unfortunately, has not received the same instruction. One letter remains unwritten. A caller may have noticed that your attention wandered. Tomorrow's dinner still depends on a message reaching the cook. These concerns continue moving after the rooms have stopped. They do not become less real because nobody can see them. This is part of the hidden weight of a life described as leisure. You have not scrubbed a floor or carried coal. Other women performed that harder labour around you, and their exhaustion is more direct than yours. Yet your own hours have required constant attention. You watched faces at breakfast and figures in the household book afterward. You judged when to speak and when a refusal needed softening. You noticed which child required praise, which servant needed correction, and which guest must be protected from the conversation beside him. Much of the work produced nothing that could be held. Its result was the absence of trouble. Dinner appeared at the proper time. The visitor departed, satisfied. The child returned upstairs without tears. Success looked like nothing happening. Domestic authority is difficult to measure for this reason. A husband may return and find the house peaceful, then imagine that peace has been resting there all day. He sees the polished room rather than the decisions that kept it polished. The household below has its own version of this silence. A maid lies down in a smaller room after work that began before your curtains opened. The cook rests after hours near the range. Their sleep may be shorter than yours, and the bell system keeps even the night connected to duty. The same illusion surrounds your pleasures. You sat with a book, walked in a park, and drank tea near the fire. Each activity sounds gentle when removed from its rules. Inside the day, even ease required correct timing. A walk needed suitable company. A book closed when duty entered. A dance could be enjoyed, but not with such openness that enjoyment became evidence. Your life contains substantial privilege. Warm rooms, good food, and servants protect you from the labour carried by most women. Money offers choices unavailable to a factory worker or farm wife. It brings medical care and distance from the dirt of the street. That comfort is real and should not be mistaken for hardship merely because it comes with etiquette. Yet privilege does not create complete freedom. Marriage, family expectation, and reputation still shape the borders of your life. You may direct a household while larger authority remains beyond reach. For much of the century, the law can limit a married woman's control over earnings and property. Later reforms improve that position, but custom keeps many older habits alive. You can manage dinner for 20 people while society remains doubtful that women should help choose a government. The contradiction is large enough to fill a room and polite enough never to raise its voice. No single day represents every Victorian lady. Wealth changes the number of servants and the amount of leisure. Marriage changes status. Widowhood can bring independence or fear, depending on money. Illness may reduce life to one room. A woman in an affectionate household lives differently from one surrounded by control. Personality matters too. Some women enjoy company and domestic leadership. Others find the rituals stifling. The word lady describes an expectation more neatly than it describes a human life. Beneath the title is a person who can be generous or selfish, contented or restless, brave in one room and uncertain in the next. History often preserves the gown more easily than the woman inside it. Still, the pressure to appear composed reaches widely through respectable society. Difficulty should remain private. Anger must not disturb the room. Grief should learn the visiting hours. This does not mean feeling disappears. Bedrooms hold tears. Letters to sisters carry honesty. Close friends hear what formal callers do not. Humour survives as well because people living beneath strict rules often understand their absurdity better than anyone. A woman who smiles through a tedious visit may later describe it perfectly to someone she trusts. Politeness is not the absence of perception, it is perception wearing a better expression. A clock marks the hour somewhere beyond the bedroom, steady and indifferent to whether the day has gone well. The last movement below stairs finally fades. Somewhere, a servant secures a door and lowers a lamp. For a few hours, the house asks nothing more of your posture or face. Tomorrow, it will begin before you do. Coal will be carried upward, curtains will open. Warm water will arrive beside the basin. Your maid will enter with the hour and the weather, and the same room will prepare you for a different set of duties. You turn the pillow and find the cooler side. Rain continues against the glass. At last, even the calling cards must remain silent. Reputation may still be taking notes, but tonight it will have to write in the dark. And now the house can rest around you. The last guest has gone, the lamps are low, and the fire has settled into a patient red glow. Upstairs, a gown lies across a chair, no longer required to explain rank, taste, or good breeding to anyone. Below stairs, a servant closes one final door after a day that began before the curtains opened. From the street, this life looked graceful. Inside it, grace required constant work. A refusal had to sound kind. A meal had to arrive without revealing the strain of the kitchen. Even a walk through the park asked for the right companion and an expression that suggested you had never once considered escaping the bonnet. Some of these customs feel absurd now, and many were. Still, the women who lived among them were never merely ornaments in polished rooms. They managed homes, guarded private feelings, carried family worries, and found small freedoms wherever they could. The servants who made comfort possible carried an even heavier burden, often with little privacy and less rest. Both learned how to keep going while effort was expected to remain invisible. As you return gently to the present, notice the simple comforts around you. Warmth reaches the room without coal being carried upstairs. Water waits without a servant lifting every jug. Your clothes can be chosen for comfort, and no calling card is measuring your affection from a silver tray. These comforts may feel unremarkable now, but they still deserve gratitude. Let the rain fade from the Victorian windows, let the carriage wheels disappear beyond the dark street. No guest is waiting below, and no letter needs an elegant answer tonight. Rest your hands. Let your breathing soften. The house has finished asking things of you. The night is yours now, and even reputation has finally put down its pen.